The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on tonight's show. Hope the weekend treated you well. I've got a lot to discuss about my weekend that just passed, but I'll do that on the podcast tomorrow night. So if you're interested in that, join me for that tomorrow. I want to start off the show by giving you a quick public service announcement. I will do this throughout the show and once again towards the end of the show, but I will be live tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time on Bleacher Report, talking about the Commanders' draft targets and potential trades. So if that's something that interests you, if you're not doing anything, if you're able to pop an earbud in at work, or you're going to the gym or whatever, and you can pop into that stream on Bleacher Report, it'll be there after it's done. So again, no rush. No worries if you can't catch it live, but if you can, it'd be awesome if you could jump in there and be a part of the discussion. So I will be doing that tomorrow. And then I'll be giving you my draft schedule as we get closer to the draft. I already know what it is, but there's no need in telling you that draft schedule right now. You'll just forget. And so I'll tell you as we get to the week of the draft, and I'll tell you early and often so you'll know exactly what to expect from me. But there's that as well. So obviously I was out of the office towards the end of last week over the weekend, and in the event of that happening, a few things happened. One, Washington signed another player, wide receiver, Olamide Zaccheaus. Talked about that on a separate video already. So if you haven't had a chance to digest that, go ahead and knock that out when you get a chance. I coupled that one with the signing of running back Jeremy McNichols, who they also signed today. Then they signed Jeff Driscoll. Talked about that in a separate video as well. So all of that is already up on the channel. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, by all means, please help yourself. But in the meantime, the biggest thing that happened over the weekend was Drake Maye's pro day. And it was on the heels of Jaden Daniels. We had already spoken about that. And so Jaden Daniels was a so-so pro day. It wasn't knocking your socks off. But again, pro days aren't meant to like move the needle one way or the other. If you love a candidate, if you love a prospect, if you love a player, the pro day isn't really going to do much to sway you either way. If you already feel good about that guy, the pro day is only going to confirm that, or you're just going to say it's just the pro day, whatever. If you don't like a guy and they turn in the type of pro day that Jaden Daniels turned in, it's easy to then dismiss that player and say, see, this is why I don't like him. He's throwing against air and he can't even complete passes, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I wouldn't put too much. This is the same thing we talk about when we go about the combine. Like, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to knock you for not having – you're more likely to be highly scrutinized by not having a great pro day than you are not throwing well at the combine. Again, but that's no here nor there. Jaden Daniels was okay, right? It wasn't anything earth-shattering, but Drake Maye's was fantastic. Now, there were some misses in there. I sat there, I watched every single throw, just as I did with Jaden Daniels, and I was able to kind of gain some feedback. The beauty in having as much time to digest Drake Maye's pro day is I was able to then kind of see what everybody else was saying about the pro day, how people who were there in attendance felt, also the reaction to it. And then because this is what we do, we go in cycles with this draft, process. And I talk about this all the time, which is why you can't get caught up in everything in the moment. Everything is so sensationalized during draft season. It's a lot of rumors, a lot of innuendos, a lot of people filling that void of the time between, the end of the college football NFL season to the draft happening. There's so much that goes on. One of the big things that has happened this draft period is that for some reason, and I shouldn't say for some reason, I know why. Okay, the tape isn't great. It's inconsistent, uneven at best. But the guy that everyone's taken and drugged through the mud during this process is Drake Maye. And usually when there are 3 or 4, high-level quarterbacks, one of those guys is going to be picked apart mercilessly. All right. Last year, it was Will Levis, right? He was drugged through the mud. CJ Stroud, you could throw him in there too. They tried to assassinate his character a bit with the whole testing situation, but it was really Will Levis. He went from somewhere in the middle of the first round to, oh my God, he can go as high as number 1 overall, to falling out of the first round altogether, right? And there was such discrepancies with people that you talk to. You go back to that 2021 draft where we had 5 first-round quarterbacks, and the guy that really went through the ringer with that particular draft class was Mac Jones. And I was a part of that. I'm not going to lie to you. I had the pitchfork and the torch out on Mac Jones because I wanted no parts of him, because that was a draft in which I think Washington could have been looking at quarterback. And we were interested, but as it ultimately turned out, the guy that they wanted, it was going to take too much to go up and get him, et cetera, et cetera. But I didn't want Mac Jones. I knew that much. And you see where he is now. But again, I said all of that to say this. There's always a guy during the process that somehow has a 180 done on him, right? Where he goes from this high-level prospect to, oh my God, this guy stinks. And that guy this year is Drake Maye. Somehow, some way, he went from, and I've seen this happen plenty of times, so it's nothing new to me, but it's still mind-boggling that it happens so often and people continue to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. So he's gone from a guy that could go somewhere in the top 3 to, you listen to Chris Sims and he's a project and he shouldn't be taken in the first round. And you get people kind of jumping on that bandwagon. Oh my God, Drake Maye stinks. He's inaccurate. He's this, he's that. And all of a sudden, you got all kinds of guys jumping in front of him. And I'm just sitting there like kind of stone-faced. Like, are you guys done yet? Because when it's all said and done, the man is going in the top 3 picks. Okay. And if it were up to me, he'd be 2. And I've said that. I've made it abundantly clear. My stance isn't going to change. All right. Caleb Williams is going to go number 1 overall. And if I were the Commanders, I'm taking Drake Maye with the number 2 overall pick. That's been my stance. That's going to be my stance. It's not going to change. I think they were leaning towards Jaden Daniels. Now, again, a lot of time left in this process. We'll see what ultimately happens. But the beauty of this particular pro day with Drake Maye, and I think what happened at his pro day was he went out, he performed well. I love the script that he put together. I thought Jaden Daniels' script was so basic, right? Like, you didn't get to see a lot of NFL applications in terms of things that could happen. Like, I love the fact that, first of all, it felt like Jaden Daniels' script was only about 50 to 55 throws. I could be wrong about that. It didn't feel like a lot of throws. Same with Michael Penix Jr. It didn't feel like I got a bunch of throws. And just side note, before we dive into Drake Maye's pro day, to me, there's a reason why Michael Penix Jr. pushed himself to run a 40 at his pro day. No other quarterback in the top, 5 of the draft, the guys that we've been talking about, McCarthy, Williams, Maye, Daniels, none of them ran a 40, right? He had to run a 40, though. I wonder if you guys caught wind of that. And, there are varying times as to what he ran, but it's a sub 4.6, which is not what I thought he was going to run. Some said 4.59, 4.56, whatever the hell it is. It's an impressive time for a guy that did not use his wheels at all in college. And I told you, he was interesting to me because when you watched him at Indiana, he was more of a runner. It felt like it, but you go look at the rushing statistics, they were never there. And also, you have to keep in mind in college, sack totals and sack numbers are subtracted from the rush totals. So if you have 24 yards rushing in a game and you didn't take a 12-yard sack, you now have 12 yards rushing. That's how it works in college football. So you have to take that into consideration. But that doesn't matter. If you're a guy that's mobile, that's using his legs, doesn't matter how many sacks you take, you're still going to have a healthy amount of rushing yards at season's end. He's never had a good rushing season. I don't think he's ever rushed for over 100 yards in any of his collegiate seasons. I could be wrong about that, but I feel pretty confident that if he did creep over 100 in one of those years, he didn't get over 200. I can say that with 100% certainty. I don't think he's ever gotten over 100 yards in a single season. So his rushing and his legs have never been a big threat. Then you get to, and then you have the injuries, obviously, and then you go to UW, where he never ran and he took some sacks where you go, bro, are you mobile or not? So him running a 40 to me was indicative of the rumors, and not necessarily the rumors. This was real. People like myself and others out there said, oh, he's not mobile, because you look at some of the sacks he took at Washington and you go, bro, you couldn't have gotten away right there. You really couldn't have broke the pocket and used your legs and gotten 7 yards on that play. You really just got a gain of 1 right there, and now you have to punt. You couldn't have got a gain of 6 on 3rd and 5. So I think he wanted to show people, hey, if you want to draft me and use me as a dual threat, I can do that. I don't think anybody's buying it, though. Anyway, it's good to know that that's in the back pocket, similar to C.J. Stroud and his performance against Georgia in his final collegiate football game, which opened a lot of people's eyes, including mine, because we all said, bro, you don't have any ability to make things happen off schedule. When the play breaks down, you're not creative enough. You don't even buy extra time in the pocket, let alone use your legs to create more time or use your legs to get you out of trouble when everything breaks down and your legs are the last resort. You don't even do that. And then he did all of it in the Georgia game, and we all kind of walked away saying, wait a minute. If he could do it against the best defense in college football, he could definitely do it at the next level. So that opened some eyes. I don't know if this is going to do that for Michael Penix Jr. or not, but it is worth noting that's pretty damn fast. Okay. That 4.56, 4.59, that's where the time is supposed to be between. It's pretty damn fast. Okay. So if that's accurate, okay, he's more mobile than we gave him credit for, but is it applicable? All right. Are you going to be able to do that when you have 270, 250, 300 pounders chasing after you and the pocket's collapsing? Are you going to use that 4.56 40 to then create? Because that's not what we saw on tape. So anyway, that was a sidebar. I just wanted to bring that up. But Drake Maye, the thing I loved about his script was that it was 70 passes initially, and then there were some do-overs in there. So it ended up being like 75 passes. But the thing that I loved that I didn't see with Michael Penix Jr. and I didn't see with I didn't see a lot of with Jaden Daniels was some of those off-platform throws, right? Where he comes from under center and he's fading backwards, or he eludes a rusher, steps up, runs, throws off of 1 foot across his body, things like, because that's going to happen in an NFL game, right? Every pass isn't going to be perfect. You drop back, you set your feet, you take a hitch, and then you let it rip. Every pass isn't going to be play action fake, stick the ball out, get to the top of your drop, roll out to your left, and then launch it, 70 yards in the air, and throw a beautiful ball. Like, that's not how this works in the NFL. There are going to be things that come up. Sometimes it's just get the football, drop back. They got all out pressure, and you got to throw it off your back foot. And you just got to lob it up there and give your guy a chance, right? And so you got to see some of that with Drake Maye. And I love the fact that they put that in his script. They put a lot of under center stuff under there for his footwork, and that still needs work, right? And so while you could tell he worked on it, you could tell that the mechanics are something that he was drilled to try to clean up. There's still, some inconsistencies there. But again, that's what coaching is all about. What it all comes down to is, for me, right, with Drake Maye, Jaden Daniels, that's the real discussion for me. Those are the two guys that Washington's deciding between at 2. Okay. That's what I ultimately believe in my heart of hearts. That's what I want to believe. I may be wrong in that assessment, and JJ McCarthy may be in that discussion. I don't want to hear any of that, really, right? if that is in fact the case and he ends up being the pick, which I can't see any way that they can look at Drake Maye and Jaden Daniels and go, you know what? JJ McCarthy's the answer. I don't see that, right? So I think it's between these two guys, Jaden Daniels and Drake Maye. And what it all really boils down to for me is, and this is what is really bothering me with a lot of fans, is a lot of fans want instant gratification. And I hate it when Austin Eckler comes and sits down and says, hey, I watched the Texans do it. And I'm like, that don't inject that poison into the fan base, because there are a lot of people that already believe we're capable of that. And I'm not telling you that we won't, but that's not how this works. Usually, okay? Generally, you don't get to skip steps, okay? Generally, that's how it works. The NFL is set up for parity, right? It's set up for parity. But usually it's set up for parity for the teams that already have things in place. We had nothing in place. We didn't even have ownership in place, okay? Ownership wasn't in place. GM wasn't in place. Head coach wasn't in place. The staff wasn't in place. The starting quarterback wasn't in place. 80% of the roster wasn't in place. All of this is brand new. That's not what Houston did last year. That's not what the Lions did last season. Like, there's a lot of impatience within the fan base because they want it now. They want this to be microwavable. Set it to a minute and 30 and let's go ahead and eat. And that's not what this is, right? And so to me, what it boils down to is, what do you want more? Are you looking for the instant gratification, or are you looking for the potential big payoff, right? That's what it boils down to for me. If you want instant gratification, Jaden Daniels is your man. He's the guy that's most ready to play, come in, start right away, all right? He's got a ton of starts under his belt. We've seen the maturation and growth from him. But here's the thing. He's pretty much at his ceiling, okay? I can't say that he's maxed out, but you're pretty much, you've gotten what you're going to get out of Jaden Daniels for the most part. He's not going to get that much better than what he already is, which is why you hear a lot of people talk about his ceiling. He's probably the safest of all of the prospects because his floor, rather, is very high. It's extremely high, right? We got to watch him mature from Arizona State to LSU to last season, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. We got to watch that. We got to witness that, okay? And so it all culminated in him finally reaching the pinnacle of his collegiate career. And while he's a really good quarterback, how much better is he going to get at the next level? There's no question that there's so much more for Drake Maye to tap into. And that's what you have to ask yourself is, do I want a guy that is going to come into the league at a 7 potentially and may get to an 8, may get to 7.5, 8? Or do I want a guy that may come into the league as a 5, 5.5, but he can get to 10? His ceiling is 10. Right? And that number may be lower. Jaden Daniels might come into the league as a 6. And his ceiling might be a 7, 7.5 if he maxes out his potential. Drake Maye might come into the league as a 4.5, right? But if he maxes out his potential, he's a 10. And that's what you got to ask yourself. Which is more important to you? Coming in, having a chance to win 9, 10, 11 games in his rookie season, or having the guy that may need to sit for the first 8, 9 games of his career, sit for the first season of his career if things go well. And then, like, I just want you to think about a guy like Jordan Love. Jordan Love was not ready to play NFL football when he first came into the league. I loved his skill set. He was one of my favorite quarterbacks in that 2020 draft class. All right, Burrow was number 1 for me. And if you go back and watch those videos, I bet you I was talking that Jordan Love shit as the guy that I wanted after Joe Burrow, okay? Because I did not love Tua. He's coming off those injuries, especially the hip, and I definitely wasn't a Justin Herbert fan. Definitely wasn't a Herbert fan. And Jalen Hurts was non-existent to me. So I was talking that Jordan Love shit, and I was talking, hey, he's Aaron Rodgers. Look at Jordan Love. He sat. Now, you look, not everybody is in the position to sit a quarterback for 3, whole seasons like the Packers did because they got a future first ballot Hall of Famer in front of him. But I said that to say this. They waited. They were patient. And look at the payoff. Jordan Love's first playoff game, he goes ape shit, goes on the road and scores damn near 50 points in a victory as they smashed the Dallas Cowboys, and then probably should have won the following week on the road against the number 1 seeded San Francisco 49ers, and he played a whale of a ball game there too. So, again, I look at the big payoff, right? Drake May, to me, is a guy that has a tremendous ceiling. And if you're now, the floor isn't as high as a Jaden Daniels. And I don't know if he's ready to come in right away and wow you and win 8, 9 games in his rookie season like Jaden Daniels may be ready to do. But I can tell you, this environment that we're fostering in Washington, and this is my hope. And Louis Riddick has been talking about this for years. I remember when we drafted Dwayne Haskins, and he said, Haskins isn't going to succeed in Washington because they don't have the right infrastructure. And he was totally right. And it is so important about infrastructure. It's so important about infrastructure and what you set up for your quarterback when you draft him. And one of the things I've realized over time with quarterbacks is you got to have the right setup. I think a perfect example of this is last year. I think that's a case study in itself. Look at the number 1 overall pick, total dysfunction in Carolina, dog eat dog situation with the coaching staff. You got coaches stabbing each other in the back, trying to survival of the fittest. He's got 3 different play callers in his rookie season. He's got nobody to throw the football. And we said this when they drafted him, when they traded away DJ Moore. Who the hell is he going to throw the football to? Well, that proved to be true. He had nobody to throw the ball to, really. The offensive line was trash. The play calling was horrid. They fired his head coach, who was the first play caller. They gave Thomas Brown the play calling duties, then they took it from him, and then they gave it back to him. And so it was a mess. And you saw how his rookie season turned out. You had Panthers fans feeling like, oh my God, we drafted a bust. This guy can't play quarterback. He's too small. His arm isn't strong enough, this, that. These were all things that they knew before they got him. And now all of a sudden, this guy can't play. Well, that's false. He can play, right? How good can he be at this level? We'll find out. But their situation wasn't set up for success for a young quarterback. Meanwhile, in Houston, they had been setting the foundation for 3 years, 2 years in the making, right? And it wasn't this linear path, this straight direct path to success. They fired a coach after 1 year, then they fired another coach after 1 year, and then they finally landed on DeMeco Ryans. It's almost as if they were buying their time, knowing that we don't want, whomever we think is going to be the guy here, we don't want him enduring the losing seasons that are to come. So we're gonna hire a guy, fire a guy, hire another guy, fire him. Now we're ready to do something. Let's hire the guy that we think can turn it around, get our young quarterback, and we'll go from there. And they had already been drafting players, and they had already been kind of setting that in motion, and then boom. And who saw that coming? I didn't. Most of us didn't. But it's not a surprise when you kind of take a step back. It is a surprise, but their division wasn't great. And when you look at the situation that they built around CJ Stroud, and some of the guys stepped up, like nobody expected Noah Brown to have the season he had last year. But they already had a receiver, right, that they felt good about. Then they added another one in Tank Dell. And then Noah Brown stepped up. So you got 3 receivers right there. They added a tight end in Dalton Schultz. They went out and added Motor Singletary at the running back position. So they gave him everything. They had offensive linemen. They had to shuffle some things around. They did have some injuries, but they had their rock at left tackle. They had spent resources on the offensive line. So it wasn't a great offensive line, but it was good enough. The play calling was exceptional, right? With Bobby Slowick. And so everything was kind of set up for him to succeed. The defense was good. He didn't have to win every game, but then there were some games where he had to go out and sling it, and he did. But all in all, they set that foundation, right? He was insulated. It matters where you're drafted and how that quarterback is going to be set up for success. Chicago is setting up Caleb Williams to succeed. Now, whether he succeeds or not, the only place I think they may have failed him, and we'll see how it goes, is the coaching staff. Because if things don't go well, the assumption is they're going to fire their head coach. And if they fire him, the likelihood is you're going to be starting with a brand new staff next year, and he's going to have to learn another playbook. And that's the only thing that could get a little dicey in Chicago, right? Now, who's to say? They could not have success this year. Caleb could be okay, but they could think that the reason they didn't have success is the coaching staff fire, and they could come and get our guy, Cliff Kingsbury. What if he has a really good season this year? They could come get our guy and make him the head coach next year, right? Who knows? I said all of that to say this. I think this is the best setup that we've had in Washington to bring in a young quarterback and help him succeed ever. Now, Evers is a pretty strong statement, but I mean, you could even go back to Gibbs 1.0, and there wasn't a time where they ever tried to develop a young quarterback. There really wasn't. Maybe Joe Theismann, maybe. I mean, they did have him fielding punts at one point, so I don't really know how they were looking to develop him or not, but I don't think we've ever been set up like this because Mark Rippon, I don't know if they handled him the best way necessarily, early on in his career especially, but I just know that from top to bottom, whatever decision that they decide to make, from the ownership all the way down to the lowest level of coaching, all right, our QCs, right? Quality control coaches, that's what the QC is. Everybody's on the same page. Everyone's in sync. And they've put together a roster, I believe, that's going to be competitive. Now, there are going to be holes in this roster, but it's going to be a competitive roster. And having gone through the process of a mock draft now and having that under my belt, looking at the endless possibilities that exist for this team because of those 3 third-round picks and the 2 in the second round, I'm telling you, there's a chance that every need that we have, that we think we have, we could knock down in a major way. Like, for instance, you're not going to solve every single issue, but they've left certain issues on the roster where they can address it via the draft, and you feel like, well, that's complete now, at least for this year, right? Like defensive end, they've taken care of it so much so that you don't have to spend anything in the draft at defensive end. Now, again, if somebody falls into your lap, you shouldn't turn that down. That's what BPA is all about. And that's what they've effectively done, is they've put themselves in a position to take best player available should one fall into their lap. But if we're going with the theme of best player at a position of need at the time of the pick, right? They're in a position where they could get a tight end, one of the best. I think you can, with the 2 seconds, if they don't do anything, if they don't trade back into the first round, which I still think is a realistic possibility, but the way that the mock draft felt every time that I did it, even every time I tried to get into the first round, all those teams needed tackles too, and they weren't trying to trade out of the first round. So it's going to be tough to get back into the first round when everybody's like, nah, let me get mine before they all gone. Because as we know, with the tackle position, get the supplies while they last, right? This is a deep draft, but Quantity and quality are two different things. People get them mixed up all the time. All the time. Because when people say it's a deep draft, yeah, you can find you a starter. That's different than you can find you a Pro Bowl All-Pro. You can find a starter. Yeah, you can find a Morgan Moses. You can find a Charles Leno Jr. Yes, you can find that in this draft. But are you going to find Trent Williams? Are you going to find Penei Sewell at 34 or 36 or 40? That's the question. That's what you got to ask yourself. Are you going to find Chris Samuels at 36? Probably not. That's my guess. I'm not saying you won't, but most second-round tackles, they look like Donovan Smith, right? They look like the tackle Cam Robinson in Jacksonville. Really good tackles. You can get away with them, but they're not dominant by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll see what happens, but I said all of that to say this. After doing that mock draft and seeing the picks and how they fall and how they're in a position where you could get the second best tight end in this draft if you want him. You can get the, eighth best receiver, and who knows where he's at on your board if you want him, right? Or you could get the sixth best corner if you want him. You could get the third best safety in the draft, second best safety, the very best safety in the draft if you want him. It's what you want to do. It's all in what they want to do, right? So you got to ask yourself with some of these picks, do I want the sixth best receiver or do I want the second best tight end? And that goes into the decision-making process. But I said all that to say this. Just like Chicago has done with the building of that roster, whomever they draft, it's going to be Caleb Williams. He's going to be set up to succeed right away. They've spent resources on the offensive line each of the last 3 years, right? They've spent resources on the skill positions now 2 years in a row, trading for DJ Moore, trading for Keenan Allen, adding guys via free agency. Now they've added, they've got a tight end that we all think is really good out of Notre Dame. They added another tight end in free agency. They're loaded on offense. And then they add DeAndre Swift at running back. They're loaded, right? They're loaded and armed for bear, pun intended. So they're setting up an infrastructure that is going to allow Caleb Williams to have some success if the coaching staff is what it needs to be. I think our situation could be just as good, if not better, because there's going to be no change for the foreseeable future at head coach. Offensive coordinator can't really say, don't know what Cliff Kingsbury, objective is and what his goal is. He could tell us till his face turns blue. Oh, I just want to be an offensive coordinator. I just want to call plays. I want to have fun. That's all good and fine and well until somebody offers you an opportunity to be a head coach again. Then what? And then especially if it's with your boy Caleb Williams, then what? You're going to turn them down and say, nah, I just want to call plays. Yeah, right. So we'll see, right, how true to form he is when an opportunity presents itself, because one didn't. So it's easy to say, nah, I just want to call plays. Yeah, nobody offered you a job. So, yeah, of course you just want to call plays. We'll see what happens. But I said all of that to say we're in a position to draft a guy like Drake Maye, I feel, and have him have a chance to be successful. Louis Riddick said when we drafted Haskins, he wasn't going to succeed here. There's no way he could succeed. It was too dysfunctional. And he was right. One, Jay Gruden never wanted him. Two, they had no plan for how they were going to implement him and integrate him into the offense and get him ready to play. They threw him out into a no-win situation in his first career opportunity against the Giants, and he wet the bed. And it was almost Jay's way of saying, see, he's not ready. Leave me the hell alone about playing this young kid. Like, Jay literally threw him. Jay never wanted him. So it was a bad setup from the jump. It got ugly fast. Jay ended up getting canned. then they old man Callahan gets an opportunity, and we didn't score we scored a touchdown for a month. Okay, it was so bad, and there was no structure, there was no accountability, so Haskins could do whatever the hell he wanted to do, like take a selfie at the end of his first career win and not be on the field to take the knee, right? We all laughed it off at the time, but that was a sign of the lack of structure, the lack of discipline, the lack of accountability here in Washington, that he could go and do that and think it was okay. It's different this time around. So whether it's Jaden Daniels or Drake Maye, I think we're set up for that young quarterback to have an ecosystem, and I've talked about that word, ecosystem, set up for him to be insulated, right? Put into that ecosystem, that bubble of protection that's going to allow him to develop and grow at the pace that is right for him. Not every quarterback, not every player, and I talk about this all the time, not every player, not every quarterback develops at the same rate of speed. What's good for one player may not be good for another player. And so I really like the setup here, which is why I think taking Drake Maye is the best decision they could make, because it's going to put them in a position where if he's not ready to go right away and they don't think he's ready, and they'll know, they'll see him getting reps in practice every day. They'll see if he's ready to go or not. And I surmise that if they draft him second overall, they're going to play him. But if he's not ready, they don't have to rush him. I thought the pro day was fantastic. You got to see the deep ball, which we knew was really good. We got to see him throw off platform, which he did really well. I think the thing that everybody wanted to see was him under center, wanted to see the footwork, wanted to see the drops. There were a couple that got away from him, right? But there were also some dimes that he threw. And I just love some of the things that they put into the script to kind of showcase all of the things that he can do. And his skill set it's ridiculous. It is. It really, truly is. And so I've heard nothing but good things about all of their work ethics. None of these guys seem to have any issues with putting in the time to try to be great. So I don't think there's anything there that should worry us with any. And this is why I've said all along, I'm perfectly fine with whomever they select at 2, whether it be Maye or Daniels. I'm perfectly fine because I've heard nothing but good things about both of these guys from a character standpoint, from a work ethic standpoint, and both of them have skills. Both of them can play, I think, at a very high level, and it always matters where you go. We've had this conversation about Tom Brady before, right? Does Jordan Love have the type of success he had this past postseason if he goes to Cleveland? Probably not. Who are we kidding? If he came here, he definitely would not have, with all the dysfunction that we had back in 2020. Are you kidding me? We would have ruined his career. All right. We were a sieve of an organization at that time, going through a name change, eventually an ownership change. We were a mess. There's no way he would have come here and we didn't have any receivers. The roster was trash. He would have come in here, and Scott Turner was ass. He would have come in here and he would have been chewed up and spit out. And we'd be talking about Jordan Love is a bust, and he'd be being passed around the league right now as we speak, like Sam Darnold. Instead, he got to sit and wait, and look where he is now. You could say the same thing for Jalen Hurts. Don't think he was ready to come in and start for the Eagles right away. He sat practically his entire rookie season, played towards the end of it, played well at times, and I think that helped his maturation. I truly do. So, again, we'll see, right? Tua didn't start right away. Some of that was because of the injury, but I don't know if he was ready to start right away. And then here's another conversation. People love to bring up starting experience, and I think it is important when you talk about these quarterbacks. I am scarred. I don't want anybody with 1 year of starting experience in college. Thanks, but no thanks. After watching Trey Lance, Mitchell Trubisky, and having a front row bullseye view of Dwayne Haskins, I don't want any quarterback who only has 1 year of starting experience under his belt. For me, the prerequisite is you have to have a minimum of 2 years as a starting quarterback in college football for me to even entertain the thought of taking you. That said, part of the reason so many people have found it so easy to drag Drake Maye is because the tape is uneven, right? I just want you to ponder this. I just want you to think about this. What if we looked at Jaden Daniels or after his season when he turned 21 years old? What would that have been? Year 2 at ASU? Maybe year 3? What would you have said about year 3 or year 2 Jaden Daniels? Would have been year 3, I believe. What would you have said about year 3 Jaden Daniels out of ASU? What would you have said? What was it? 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. What would you have said? I don't remember the numbers from that 3rd year when he turned 21 years old. Would you have even considered him a day 1 pick? Probably not. Would you have even considered him a day 2 pick? My guess is no. So, looking at Drake Maye as a 21-year-old and 2 years of starting experience, yes, the tape is uneven. He's 21 years old. Okay? I think some people have to be reminded of this. He's 21 years old, and a lot of the things that people see in his game that are off a bit are structurally fixable. They're not things that are broken beyond repair. It's things that you expect a 21-year-old sometimes to have issues with, and with proper coaching and the right amount of patience, it can be cleaned up. I just look at it from that perspective. If we were looking at Jaden Daniels after he turned 21, we wouldn't be having this conversation about him. And there are a number of quarterbacks that you could probably say the same thing about that are in the league right now. Now, is that their fault? No, it's not their fault. He could have went back to school. He could have got more seasoning, but he didn't. And he didn't need to. He's ready to come out. We see the talent. It's all there. You know what you're getting yourself into. Are you able to coach this kid up and get the most? And to me, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The biggest thing is give me the tools. Give me the tools. He's got tools that other quarterbacks in this draft don't have, right? There are tools that he has that no other quarterback in this draft has. There are things I can say about Drake Maye that you can't say about the other quarterbacks. No other quarterback in this draft class can you say that about but Drake Maye. For instance, size. Caleb Williams doesn't have it. Height. I'm talking about height. Okay. And you could even say size too, because we're talking about a 6'4", 220-pound frame, right? 225-pound frame or so, right? So we're talking about size, height, weight, the ability to be durable. Caleb Williams doesn't have height. He's a thick guy, right? He's pretty sturdy, but he's not tall. It is what it is. Jaden Daniels is tall, right? But he doesn't have the girth. Pause. Right? He's not that 6'4", 220-pound frame guy. We were happy that he weighed in at 210 pounds. Arm talent. Caleb Williams has it. Jaden Daniels, not so much. Not so much. Not that elite stuff, right? Drake Maye has it. Athleticism. Jaden Daniels, best athlete of all these dudes. Period. But you don't have to be Jaden Daniels type of athlete to be successful in the NFL. We look at the quarterbacks who are the most successful in the NFL. Josh Allen isn't Jaden Daniels as an athlete. Patrick Mahomes damn sure isn't Jaden Daniels as an athlete. And we can go down the list. Justin Herbert, none of those dudes are Jaden Daniels, but they got plenty enough athleticism and ability to make things happen when the play breaks down to get the job done. Both Caleb Williams and Drake Maye can both do that. Jaden Daniels is more like Lamar Jackson in that regard. And he's not even Lamar Jackson, but he's the closest you're going to get. So, again, if you're looking for all of the things that you want in a quarterback in one package, the only guy that offers you all of that is Drake Maye. Now, are there flaws? Yeah, absolutely. But he's young and he's moldable. And if you can get, and again, I'm all about taking the big swing, that big, massive cut. I'm looking to crush it and knock it out of the park. I'm not looking for a double. If I wanted a double, I'd draft J.J. McCarthy. If I wanted to bat for average, I'm going and getting Jaden Daniels. And with that average, I'm going to hit some home runs. And then I'm going to leg out some triples. Might even get an indoor park home run. But if I'm looking to lead the league in home runs potentially, to have a conversation about being league MVP potentially, and I'm not saying Jaden Daniels won't ever do that, because if he turns out to be that dual threat type of quarterback that we saw at LSU, he could potentially be in that conversation. Similar to Jalen Hurts, right? If you can run, if you can move the way that Jaden Daniels can, you could find yourself in that conversation if you can marry the ability to throw the football with the ability to run. But Drake Maye, to me, is the guy that offers you the best of everything that you're looking for in one package. May not be the best at everything, but he gives you everything that you're looking for in one package. So we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. At the end of the day, what it's going to boil down to, and I said this at the top of the show, I'll repeat it once more, and then we'll move on. You're gauging upside versus immediate results, instant gratification. There are a lot of fans that want to win right now. Right now. They want to win right now. And if that's what you want to do, and you're willing to pass up on the potential to have a guy that could transcend, not necessarily the position, because it's only one of those dudes in the league, and his name's Patrick Mahomes, and you're not drafting another one of those. Caleb Williams is probably the closest you're going to get to that. But if I'm talking about, let's just say, transcend the NFC East, because I think as we look at this division right now, there's no Don Dada in this division at quarterback. We got some good dudes. Jalen Hurts seems to have established himself as a good quarterback. He took a step back last year. I still think he's a damn good quarterback, though. I saw him win some games early in the season last year before shit fell apart. Dak's proven that he's a damn good regular season quarterback. Compile tons of stats in the regular season and wins. It's not just the stat stuffer. He wins games. He just doesn't win them when they count the most. That's when he has that competition anxiety pop up on him, during the months of, January, and he'll probably never see February. But those are good quarterbacks. But ain't none of those dudes game changers to the point where we go, Ain't no way we get into the top of the list of quarterbacks in the NFC East. It's an opportunity. You get the right one. And it could be either one of these boys. But my money's on Drake Maye being that guy. But it could be Jaden Daniels too. I feel good. I've said this a million times. I feel good about either one. I'm taking the big cut, though. I'm taking the big swing with Drake Maye. That's what I would do. And, look, you take it for what it's worth. We all, heard about Dan Quinn being at the pro day, and there was a throw that Drake Maye made, and he was seen walking away, shaking his head as if he was done. He had seen enough. We heard that. How true that is. Only one guy said it. It's not like, multiple people, and we got visual evidence of it. But, bro, it ain't hard to tell. As a wise man once said, it ain't hard to tell. Like, just looking at these dudes, and I'm pretty sure that was their first time being that up close and watching Drake Maye, throw the football and seeing that athleticism and his size and his frame and his ability to spin it. I'm pretty sure they walked away saying, damn, there's a lot of enticing traits here. It's going to be pretty hard to pass up. Pretty hard to pass up. Let me just make sure I make this abundantly clear. There's been this notion somehow that somehow Drake Maye is going to fall out of the top 3 in this draft. I just ain't buying it. I just don't see it. Somehow he gets to Minnesota. I don't see New England, Washington, nor Chicago trading out of the top 3 picks. To me, all 3 teams are quarterback needy, and you'd be a damn fool to trade out of the top 3 picks, knowing that these 3 quarterbacks are here, and I think all 3 have a chance. We haven't had a draft in recent memory where we talked about 5 guys in there. I think they're going to be 6 that go in the first round at quarterback, which would be the first in NFL history to have a draft with more than 5 quarterbacks going in the first round. I think this could be the one. Now, it wouldn't shock. We're going to have 5. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There will be 5 quarterbacks. Which 5? Don't know. After McCarthy, who's your flavor? Bo Nix? Are you a Michael Penix Jr. guy? We'll see how teams are looking at these 2 quarterbacks. Something tells me that all 6 of them will be gone before the end of the first round. It wouldn't shock me if one of them ended up being a second-round pick. But when we talk about drafts with 5 quarterbacks being taken, generally, only 1 or 2 of them end up being any good. And we had 5 and 21. We know how that's gone. The only one that's really left standing right now is Trevor Lawrence. And there's still people that doubt him. But we'll see what Fields 2.0 looks like. The rest of these dudes, they already look like the league has spoken on them, whether it's Mac Jones. We'll see what with Trey Lance. Jury's still out on him, but it's all about getting another opportunity for him. And who knows when that's going to come again. And then obviously Zach Wilson, nobody even wants to trade for the kid. It's rough, right? 18, it was Darnold. It started out with Mayfield, then it was Darnold, then it was Allen, Rosen, and then Jackson. Allen and Jackson are the 2 sole survivors from that draft. Mayfield is making a comeback, but I can't believe in Mayfield until I see him do it 2 years in a row. He hasn't done that yet in his career. The other 2, Rosen's been out of the league, and Darnold's a career backup now. He's a guy you pass around, okay? Don't even know what team Sam Darnold's on right now. Don't even think he's on the same roster that he was on last year. I think he's on another team's roster now. He was with the 49ers last year. Don't think he's there right now. He's on somebody's roster. Just don't ask me who, right? So, see, are there any other drafts after that one? 20 had 4. We're seeing Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, and Tua and Herbert. And that one, this is what you're hoping this draft turns out to be what that draft ended up being. All 4 of those guys have a chance to be really good. Burrow's already been to a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 AFC championships. I've already made this case that anytime he finishes the season, starts and finishes the season, they go to no worse than the AFC championship. That's the claim that you can run with Joe Burrow right now. Tua is one of those guys. I feel like Tua Tagovailoa is Kirk Cousins. He's Derek Carr. He's Dak Prescott. He'll put up numbers. He'll be really solid in the regular season. He'll win you some games. He'll get you to the playoffs. But he ain't winning you shit when you get there. And the Dolphins are stuck because they can't move on from him. They got to re-sign him. They got to pay him. But what is that? I mean, ultimately, like, that's what I don't want to be. I don't want to be stuck in neutral at quarterback. That's almost as bad as not having a guy, because you can convince yourself, you can talk yourself into, hey, we straight, we can win with this guy, which is what a lot of people felt like with Kirk Cousins, right? I felt like if I still want to see what Kirk looks like, and this shit might have already sailed, but I like his situation in Atlanta. I still think you can win something, with Kirk Cousins, but the thing is, you need everything around him. He's not an elevate the rest of the team type of guy. He never has been and never will be. But I think Tua's in that same conversation. He's not going to elevate the play of anybody around him. He needs the rest of the team to elevate him. And if you put a great team around him, he can perform, right? And he can give you a chance. Then there's Herbert, and people kill me with the Justin Herbert's 30 and 32 in his career. Those people clearly haven't watched Justin Herbert. I don't even engage in conversation with them. Those are the people that clearly have no idea. None. Zero. And then Jordan Love did what he did last year. And remember what Jordan Love looked like 2 years ago? In his one start when Aaron Rodgers had COVID against Kansas City? Remember how bad he looked? People were already shitting on the kid and ready to give up on him. This is why you got to be careful, because some fans are just toxic as hell. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. See what you guys have to say. Drake Maye had a really good pro day. I've heard people say, well, this puts him back in the conversation for number 2. I'm like, when was he ever out of the conversation for number 2? Like, again, don't fall into these false narratives. Don't fall into the trap. So wise man once told me, every hallway got some crack in it. Don't get trapped in it, okay? Don't get trapped in the conversation that Drake Maye somehow not in the top 3 discussion. He's going top 3 in this draft, and he always was going top 3 in this draft. Always was going top 3. Corey Kidwell, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Mob, y'all know what to do. Show my guy Corey some love. Welcome him with open arms. Quick story. I met Corey today. All right. Took my daughter to Fredericksburg's field house. And my guy Corey was there. He's a new manager. Shout out to, he's the new director there. Shout out to my guy Corey for the promotion and the opportunity there. But we chopped it up for like a good 15 minutes, talking about the direction he was trying to take the field house in. And my son I told you guys about my son doing flag football up there and all of that stuff. So it was good running into Corey. Cool guy, man. Look forward to chopping it up with you in the future. And welcome to the squad, Corey Kidwell. So glad to have you on board. Rob, thank you for gifting 5 memberships and your generosity. Really, truly do appreciate you, my guy, Rob Yu. Thank you so much for the generosity. Rob Yu writes, been a member for 31 months. First and foremost, salute to you, Rob Yu. Who writes, once again, thank you for your generosity, writes, what up, Lou? What's up, Rob Yu? Drake Maye is the ultimate boom or bust prospect. Can be elite if he puts it all together. Adam Peters and company have their work cut out for them, making this tough selection. He is boom or bust, right? You know where I think a lot of people kind of get caught up is he's either going to be really good or he's going to stink, as if there's no in between. Like, he might not ever reach his full potential. Few quarterbacks, few players ever realize their full potential. I don't know if you guys know that or not. Few players ever reach the pinnacle of the talents that they have. There's only a select few that actually do. And so he may never reach all of those things that we're talking about that exist inside of him that he can potentially do, right? And get to. But what he could be a really solid NFL quarterback still. Right? He can still be really solid. And his really solid with the talent that he has, it'll be better than somebody's best. Right? It'll be better than someone else's best. So he is boomer bust. I do believe of all of the prospects, I think his floor is probably of this group that we're talking about. This group of 4, 5 if you include Michael Penix Jr. I think taking health out of the equation, you're just talking off of ability. Excuse me. I think Drake Maye's floor is the lowest. Now, if we add health concerns into it, I think Michael Penix Jr.'s floor is the lowest. But if you're just talking, we take the health aspect out, injury history, all of that stuff, and we just go strictly off of what you see and what you project, his floor is probably the lowest. But in that same token, and this is why I'm willing to spin the block with him, that same conversation, if you flip it on its head and we say who's got the highest ceiling, it's Drake Maye. It's Drake Maye. Even including Caleb Williams. It's Drake Maye. So that's again, I talked about that already. That's the conversation you got to have. They do have their work cut out for them. It is going to be a great, decision. And it's one that we'll be looking back on. Like, this is the first major decision of the Adam Peters dynasty that we hope he's building here in Washington. And it's one we're going to look back on and we're going to scrutinize very heavily. If he's right, we'll praise him. We'll give him all the glory. If he's wrong, we will scrutinize the hell out of him, especially the ones that felt like he should have taken the other guy. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Video channel writes, Washington building a very nice QB safe space for the Rook. 2 mobile vets with a number of assistants and Cliff. Drayden, Jake, or JJ will be good to go. That's how I feel, right? The way that they've set this thing up, from the amount of quarterbacks that are going to be in that building to, a front office that is ironclad with Adam Peters and Lance Newmark, to a coaching staff that is just energetic and vibrant and young and innovative. Like, this isn't an old curmudgeon group, right? This is, again, I'm not used to this as a fan. I'm not used to, this young, vibrant staff with all of these faces that are young, and even if they've been in the game for a long time, they're still relatively young. I mean, Dan Quinn's been in the game a long time, and he's still relatively young. Like 50 years old is young in the NFL. You know, Dan Quinn's like 52 or something like that. That's young in the NFL. You know, it's not Sean McVay, 37 years old or whatever, you know, but it's young, man. And we don't have a bunch of old ass coaches like we have. You know, Ron comes in and I want teachers, and we got all these old ass coaches. You know, same could be said when Jay was here. We had a bunch of old ass coaches. You know, and guys, shit, Ron and Jack themselves were old as hell and wanted to do it a certain way, right? We got guys that have open minds that are, you know, progressive, that want to, you know, look at different ways to do things, adapt and adjust to the talent, et cetera, et cetera. I just think it's a great situation for whomever they select. I really do. But we'll see. Again, time will tell. We can feel this good about all of this, and it could turn out to be Eric Bieniemy 2.0. Highly doubt that, right? Just off of the way that they think, or at least they told us they're going to think, it changes that, right? The EB didn't care about stats. He told us that already, which stats shouldn't matter. You should just know, hey, this is my best player, so I'm just going to get him the ball. To hell with stats. Just get your best players involved, get them in positions to succeed. That's what the best coaches do. That's what this group has told us they want to do. Sign me up. Metaphor. Thank you for being a member for 31 months. Some of y'all trending towards that 3-year mark, man. We're going to have to do something special for some of y'all when y'all hit that 3-year anniversary as members of the mob. He says, Drake and JD throwing my member month TDs. First, SNC Sunny. I don't know what the last part is. So, you know, sometimes things be going right over my head. But 31 touchdowns in year one is crazy. How many touchdowns did CJ Stroud throw last year? Did he even throw 31 last year? I'm gonna look it up. I don't even have to ask. Let's just go and see. And I apologize. Caitlin Clark went off. Zoinks! I apologize for being live during the games tonight. It was 2 fantastic women's college basketball games tonight. And Caitlin Clark went bananas to eliminate Reese and LSU. It feels destined to be UConn and Iowa, just like it feels destined to be UConn and Purdue in men's. So we'll see what happens. But I got sidetracked. You know how I do. I'm supposed to be looking up CJ Stroud's stats from last year. 23 touchdowns last year. You really CJ Stroud just turned in one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen from a quarterback, and that included 23 passing touchdowns. You really think who we draft is going to have 31? That's crazy talk. That's ridiculous. Reese, sorry. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. You can inform me how to say your name. Usually that's how it goes. I mess it up, and if I mess your name up, just for future references, this is everybody I'm talking to here. If I mess your name up, don't let me mess your name. I've had people let me call them the wrong thing for like 2 years, and then, oh, by the way, they correct me like 2 years later. Or in the case of Zoe didn't even correct me. Somebody else corrected me for Zoe. Zoe would just let me call him Zoe this whole time. Like, don't do that. All right. If I jack your name up, just be like, yo, and it's actually just pronounced. Boom. And I got it. Then we can move on from there, right? I'm going to say Reese. That's my guess. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, our fan base, shaking my head. I want to see where this goes. But yes, the fan base can be a bit topsy-turvy sometimes. Look, when you've been as battered and bruised as we have for the better part of a quarter of a century, this is what you get. And so I try to have as much patience as the Lord will allow when it comes to this fan base, because they've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. And thus, it's tough sometimes. I will admit. You draft Hall of Fame potential at 2, not solid starter. You want solid starter, trade the pick and draft JJ or something. Maye is also only 21 years old. Facts. I'm with you 110%. This is how I feel. This is how I've always felt. This is what I've continued to try to convey. But again, if they decide to go with Jaden Daniels, I'm fine with that too. I don't have an issue. It's if they go past that barrier. I've set up a wall. All right. That wall includes Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, and Jaden Daniels. If you pass that wall to go to one of the other, now I have an issue. Now I have an issue. I'm going to get on board because that's what I do, but not without me bitching and complaining, scratching and kicking first as I scream, right? But I'm going to get in line eventually, because once you're a part of the family, you're a part of the family. Now I'm going to root like hell for you to succeed and hope that you prove me wrong. But at the end of the day, you're drafting this high. It shouldn't be. And I'm not saying that Jaden Daniels doesn't have the ability to be a Pro Bowl, all-pro quarterback. That's where, again, this is where that Civil War thing kind of kicks in, where they think it's one or the other. And I'm trying to tell you, it doesn't have to be. What I'm telling you is Drake Maye is more likely, if both of them reach their full potential, Drake Maye is more likely to be that all-pro quarterback that's in the conversation for the MVP. He's more likely than Jaden Daniels because of his skill set. That's what I'm saying. Doesn't mean that Jaden Daniels won't be that good and have the ability to do the things that we know he's capable of. The problem is the fan base, it's one or the other. It can't be both. You can't be in the middle. You got to choose a side. It shouldn't be that way where either you're right or you're wrong. I think they should take Drake Maye. But if they take Jaden Daniels, I'm going to be just as elated, stoked, and ready to rock and roll. There are a lot of fans that if they take Drake Maye, they made the wrong decision. This guy stinks, and they're going to be rooting for him to fail so they can say, see, I told you so. And vice versa. If they take Jaden Daniels, they're going to be Drake Maye supporters and stands that are like, you just effed up. This guy's too fragile. Watch what I tell you. And they're going to be rooting for him to fail, which is crazy to me. And I've said this a million times, so I know I sound like a broken record, but that's the shit that drives me nuts. That's the thing that I don't understand. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy Chris, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Chris writes, hey Lou, hope all is well with you and the family and had a nice Easter. Likewise, I really appreciate you. You know how many times I forgot that yesterday was Easter? I drove past a Target yesterday and there was nobody in the parking lot at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, why is that Target parking lot so empty? And I had to be reminded, bro, it's Easter. Oh yeah. So it was a different, you'll find out why tomorrow, but I hope your Easter was fantastic. I hope you enjoyed your family, enjoyed Resurrection Sunday, and hope you and your family are doing exquisite right now. What impact do you think $515 million agreement for the Wiz and Cap staying in DC may have on Commanders coming back to DC, if any, and why? I think there is an impact because without the Caps and Wiz there, the desperation to get Washington back into the nation's capital would have been at an all-time high. You would have had nothing in DC at that point. And they would have been so starved and they would have been so desperate to have something in the city that I think Washington and the Commanders in particular would have been like, they would have went beyond, above and beyond the Call of Duty to get them there. For a major market in a city like DC, you got to have that kind of income. You got to have professional teams bringing in extra revenue and having those businesses thrive in the area. You got to have that. You can't, no major metropolitan area can survive without having that set up. I just always think about LeBron James and what he did for Cleveland, Ohio. And when he left, what it did for the businesses there and how they struggled and some places had to shut down. And then when he came back, business was booming again. And like, it's crazy that one player can have that effect. But, you know, I just say that to say that how important it is to have, you know, something like that there. It's now ultimately on the economy, if we're getting a little bit deeper, it's more beneficial to have the Caps and Wiz in DC because you can use that arena all year round for multiple things. Whereas with the football stadium, it's really just 8 games a year, 9 now with the 17-game schedule every other year. And then if we make the playoffs, you get a couple of extra games if, you know, we have home field advantage, et cetera, et cetera. But when it's cold outside, this is why you have to build a dome. But it's a football stadium. Like, unless you're getting a Beyonce or a Bad Bunny or somebody that can fill up an arena, you're not having concerts at a football stadium that seats 67,000 people because there aren't many acts out there that can fill up a football stadium. Now, there are a bunch of acts that can fill up a baseball stadium or a basketball arena. So you can use those more, right? Or a hockey arena. You know, you can use that more. But I think if they really truly want Washington back, the impact shouldn't be as great, but I'd be lying to you if I said that it helps. I don't think it helps Washington in their pursuit of getting back to the nation's capital where they belong, to that RFK site. But we'll see, right? Keno, been a member for 5 months. Greatly appreciate you. Keno writes, I don't know, Lou. I think both QBs have high ceilings. Yeah, both of them do. But what I'm telling you is one's higher than the other. That's the thing is people, when they hear you talk about Drake Maye, it's almost like they feel like you're belittling, you know, and demeaning Jaden Daniels somehow. And I'm not. What I'm telling you is this dude is nice. This dude just has a chance to be nicer. Okay? That's what I'm saying. Like, if I tell you that, yo, De'Aaron Fox is nice, but I'm saying, but SGA has a chance to be one of the best. Both of them are nice, but there's levels to this nice, right? One has a chance to be one of the best players in the league. The other has a chance to be a really good player in this league, multiple time all-star, except other dude has a chance to be an MVP, lead his team to championships, etc., etc. There's levels to this. That's all I'm saying. Both of their ceilings are high. One's higher. That's all I'm saying. I think it's higher. This is my opinion, right? Twin D. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Twin D, writes, hey, LT. What's going on, Twin D? Fast forward to draft night. The commissioner has announced the Bears selection of Caleb Williams. Describe your personal level of anticipation at what the new regime's first pick will be. My heart's going to be beating out of my chest. The anticipation is going to be so high. I can't recall being like just talking about it. My rate of my heartbeat rather sped up, right? Like, just thinking about it gets me excited. I'm going to be so anxious at that moment. The tension will be so palpable. You can cut it with a knife. Like, it's going to be so thick. Especially if they keep it under wraps the way that they have this entire time and we still don't know anything. If we're still in the dark on April 25th at around 8:17, 8:21, like we are right now, oh man, it'll be the most anticipated pick in Commanders. It'll be the most anticipated pick for Washington. I'm trying to think of another pick that was this highly anticipated, because generally, you know what the pick, when you're drafting this high, you know what the pick is. Like, we knew what it was in 2012. We knew it was Robert Griffin III. Right? We knew that. In 2020, when we were picking, remember, we've never had the number 1 overall pick. We've never had that. So we've had 2 a bunch of times, several times, but we've always knew who the pick was going to be. We knew it was going to be Chase Young in 2020. We knew it was going to be Robert Griffin III in 2012. And when we're drafting in the top 5, we generally know who the pick is. We knew it was going to be LeVar Arrington. We knew it was going to be, well, I don't know if we knew back then it was going to be Heath Shuler. You thought it was, but there were some options available. But I don't think it was that big of a surprise to a lot of people. But this pick is gonna hit different. I think it'll be the most anticipated pick in franchise history. But again, I hate to be a prisoner of the moment, but I can't think of another pick. And some of you that are much older than me who have, because the draft wasn't this spectacle 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. The draft wasn't this spectacle that it's become. So it's hard for me to envision there ever being this much buildup for a pick in Commanders history. You couple the magnitude of this pick because of what it means for this new regime with the fact that it's so high. And this is all we've talked about probably since like week 15 of the season. We knew this was going to happen. This all we've been talking about is quarterback. My anticipation on a scale of 1 to 10 is going to be 25. And my anxiety is going to be through the roof. It'll be great. The only thing that's going to suck is it's going to be so quick. There's still going to be so much first round draft to talk about. And all we're going to want to talk about is the guy we just took and the excitement or the disappointment for some of you. And there's still a lot more draft. Like, that's the thing that's going to suck. But the reason why I think you should still be locked in is we may not be done in the first round. With all the draft capital that we have, Adam Peters could slither his way back into the first round. And so while we might be stuck on what just transpired, we might be, the Jets just said, hey, we want out of 10. That's a little high for me because you got to give up a lot to get to the top 10. But who knows what, Washington's going to do. How they try to, they may try to get back into the first round. But, man, it's going to be so much fun, that first draft night. And honestly, day 2 might be even more fun because of all the picks that we have. It's like going to the grocery store and just having almost an unlimited budget and you're starving, which is never a good thing to go to the store hungry. But in this case, we got money. We got picks to burn. We got money to burn. So we can go in and buy up all the snacks and all the things that we want that we don't need. We can go in here and go crazy if we want. Day 2 is going to be a lot of fun. But fun is different than anxious. I'm going to be anxious at number 2. Anxious. Because there's still that, I told you, 3%. But 3%, it's still 3%. There's still a chance that he could say, J.J. McCarthy, Michigan, right? Quarterback, Michigan. There's still a chance that could be said. highly unlikely, but we don't know. And it's not 0%. So, yeah, it'll be fun, Twin D. Great question. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for being a member for 26 months. King of the Bluegrass. Who writes, I hope your time off was enjoyable. You earned it. Okay, Lou. My ceiling for Daniels is Randall Cunningham. And I comped him to Randall Cunningham. And I had some people tell me I was crazy for that, which is fine. I will take that any day of the week. Who is your ceiling comp? And so I've already broken him down. I told you if he reaches his full potential, that's who I see him as. Now, he doesn't have the arm. Like Randall Cunningham had a rope, right? A hose for a right arm. So it's a little bit different. But Randall didn't become the cerebral passer that he, ultimately became until he got to Minnesota in the second act of his career. If you remember Randall, he could throw it and he was solid, but his legs, and he kind of, I don't want to say revolutionized the game, but he was so different. He was kind of a unicorn at that time because he was doing things that other quarterbacks, like that was the age of the pocket passer. Guys weren't running around, So at his size too, Fran Tarkenton was one of the first quarterbacks to really just, you couldn't catch him. He was running around. He would run backwards 15 yards and then post up and sling it 60 yards. He was the first guy to do that kind of stuff. But Fran Tarkenton was like 6 feet, 5'11". He was a smaller guy, but he was like a magician out there. Randall was 6'4", same frame essentially, right? 6'4", about 210, 212. Just lanky, tall, but kind of wiry frame, but he always got hurt too. But that was a different era of football. You do whatever the hell you wanted. You could clothesline. You could rock bottom the quarterback, right? Pick him up, slam him down on that vet turf that was pretty much painted green cement. Michael Irvin's career was ended on that vet turf. Like, that was cement. And you could do whatever you wanted to do back in those days. It was a lot different of a game, but I see a lot of similarities in the way that they're built, their play style and all of those things. I see him being a really good talent in this league. Again, if he's nurtured correctly, put in the right system, given the opportunity to succeed with some good talent, some really good play calling, I think Jaden Daniels is a problem. I think he's a problem. Brush the 4. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Brush the 4 writes, Daniels is going to be 24 and struggles to read over the middle and bad pocket presence. Plus, it's going to be worse when he doesn't have an elite O-line like LSU's. So this is where I struggle, because if he becomes the quarterback, you've already brainwashed yourself into thinking that he can't do any of these things. He sucks because of this, that, and that. And if he is the pick, then some of these things are true, right? He didn't throw it well over the middle of the football field. He is 24, which I don't think is that big of a deal. You could look at it from one end of the spectrum or the other. You could look at that 24 years old and all the starts that he has in his career, over 50 career starts. You could say, man's very experienced, which is what I talked about when I say upside versus instant gratification. He can come in and start right away, day one, and you feel like you're getting a guy because he's older, right? He's more experienced, more mature. You feel like he can just walk in there. He should be able to go in and play at a relatively high level. He's seen enough ball, right? He's played enough football. He's been in enough huddles. He's been in enough situations. He's seen enough defenses. He should be a little bit more comfortable. That said, you can look at it from the other, end of the spectrum. He's older, which means he's probably, reached closer to his ceiling, right? Because we've seen the growth. We've seen the maturation. We saw him start here, and this is the finishing point. Took him 5 years to get here, but he's finally here now. And this is where he is. And it may not get that much higher than where he is right now. And if you're okay with that, because that was a hell of a season. It landed him the Heisman Trophy. That matters. In the SEC, that matters, right? So you can look at it either way and say, yeah, he's older, probably already hit his ceiling. Didn't really extend plays to throw in college. Doesn't have the biggest arm. You can pick apart things, but I choose not to focus on all the negatives because everybody's got negatives. What can you do? My wife, she's very big on, don't keep telling me what somebody can't do. Give me solutions. Tell me what we can do to rectify the problem, right? In the industry that she works in, that's important. Okay, so we've established that these are some of the issues. How do we correct them? So if those are some of the issues that you brought up, and I don't know if his pocket presence is terrible. I think his first inclination is to tuck it and run, right? That doesn't make him have poor pocket presence. It just means, hey, sometimes you're going to have to stand in there, stare down the gun barrel, and deliver the football. Your first instinct can't be tuck it and run every single time, because eventually defenses are going to stop rushing you, right, aggressively, and they're just going to form a wall, a cup, so to speak, and keep you in it. And if you can't function in that cup, you're going to struggle, right? So, again, that's where coaching comes into play. Is, hey, stand in there, go through your reads. And we've seen him do that. And to your point, he had a really good offensive line at LSU. And they took care of him for the most part. Who's to say he will or won't get that at the next level? That's what the Eagles have provided Jalen Hurts. Who's to say he doesn't go somewhere where that will be provided for him? We don't know. But all I can tell you is there's a lot of things that he does really well. There's a lot of things that he does really well. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy Chris, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy Chris writes, hey Lou, what's up, Chris? 2 questions. How feasible do you think it is for Mariota to start as QB this season, to give Daniels or Maye time to learn the system, i.e. Mahomes? And then 2, what is one player outside the top 5 that you're excited about their upside? So, is it possible for Mariota to start? Absolutely it is. Is it likely? I don't think so. I know what has been told to us. I know that that's an option that exists. I've seen teams kind of, have that in their back pocket. But what did we say all draft season last year about Anthony Richardson? What did we say? Oh, man, he's such a talent. But he's not ready to play yet. He's raw. So he's going to need some time. How was that not the rallying cry? Was that not the mantra when it came to Anthony Richardson last year? Oh, of all these quarterbacks, he's got the highest upside. Sound familiar? He's got the highest upside, but he's not ready to play yet. You can't throw him out there. But, man, is he talented. And if he goes to the right, spot with the right coaching, this, that, man, he's got a chance, but he's not ready yet. They declared that man the starter like second day of training camp. So, yeah, it's highly unlikely, man. You draft a guy in the top 5, usually that guy's going to start. However, there are extenuating circumstances. Every situation, as I've said already a million times, isn't the same. And so, one team could say, yeah, no, this guy's starting right away. In the case of Caleb Williams, that's probably going to be the case in Chicago. Oh, yeah, he's starting right away. They don't need to see anything. This guy's going to be our starter day one. And then, New England may say, nah, we're not ready to start our quarterback yet. That's why we got XYZ backup quarterback. We might do the same thing, or we may say, we may actually have a battle, but it's really just to see if the young fella is ready to go or not, right? So we'll see what happens. I'm excited for whomever we select and what decision that they make. I can't see Marcus Mariota starting week 1, but I wouldn't be shocked if it happened, but I don't see it happening. As far as upside and a player outside of the top 5, I'm assuming you're talking first round talent. I'm excited for a couple of positions because there's some dudes with some serious talent. And we haven't been really talking about these positions all that much. But I think corner and edge rusher, I'm excited to see how some of these dudes turn out, because Dallas Turner for me is super athletic, but I haven't seen like the rush ability. I've seen a bunch of dudes like him come in the league and just not take off, because you got to be able to actually rush. And I don't know if he has that. I've seen plenty of explosive guys come into the league and just not cut it because they don't have a move Rolodex, so they never use their hands. I want to see what he turns into. Some of these corners. Really, the Toledo kid. For him to be that big, to run that fast. I watched some of the Senior Bowl stuff. It was incredible. I want to see how he does at the next level. Can he really morph into like the next big thing at the cornerback position? He has all of the physical gifts to do so, but it's one thing to do it in the MAC. It's another thing to do it in the NFL. So I'm interested in guys like that. I think they're going to be some really good players. And then, I've watched so many tackles. Troy Fatanu is a guy that I'm really high on. None of them am I more high on than, Talisa Fuaga, but I think I know what he is, right? Talisa Fuaga. Fatanu is interesting because I think a lot of people, because of his side, they just want to push him inside. I think he can play tackle, man, but we'll see, right? JLG, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. JLG writes, nothing to say, just showing love. Hope you had a good weekend, Lou. Likewise, JLG, man. I really appreciate the love, really appreciate the support, and hope you had a tremendous weekend as well, and hope your Easter was outstanding. And I guess I'll take this opportunity, since you just gave me an opportunity to do this, to let you guys know that we'll be on Bleacher Report tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. live, talking about the Commanders and draft targets, potential trades, things of that nature. So I'll be on Bleacher Report live tomorrow at 11 a.m. East time. And if you're not doing anything, you got some time on your hands, throw me on, man. Jump in the fray. Just show your support. Either way, man. Like I said, it'll be there. Whether you watch it live or not, you come back around, it'll be on Bleacher Report. So no worries. Really appreciate the support either way. Y'all always hold the kid down, and I can't thank you guys enough for the support. Corey Kidwell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Corey, writes, hey, Louie, what's going on, Corey? Says, great seeing you today. I think we take Daniel's Commanders content GOAT. Really appreciate you, Corey. Once again, it was fun chopping it up with you. Look forward to seeing you in the future and having great discussions and conversations with you. You think we take Daniels, and I told you I did my mock draft, and we will kind of talk about those mocks at some point this week. But I mocked us Jaden Daniels, you know, in both of those mocks, even though I said that if New England were to trade up, I don't think it would be for Jaden Daniels. I think it would be for Drake May. I think it would be for Jaden Daniels. So we would be left with Drake May. But this is why I don't think a team like Minnesota, this is the thing. If these quarterbacks weren't this good, do you really think Minnesota would be dying to get into the top 3? Do you think Minnesota would have blindly traded for an additional first-round pick to arm themselves with the amount of ammunition necessary to get into the top 3? Do you really think they would have done that if they didn't think highly of the quarterbacks available in the top 3? If they didn't think that those quarterbacks were worth that, they could have just tried to negotiate with either the Chargers or the Cardinals at 4. Why even try to get to 3 or 2, right? If you're cool with J.J. McCarthy, why even go through all of that trouble? They were trying to get into the top 3 because they know that these quarterbacks have a chance. There are no guarantees in this thing. They just know that the talent at the top 3 with those first 3 quarterbacks is tremendous. The upside there is ridiculous, and they want a piece of that action. They just aren't going to be able to get it. I don't think, at least. Who knows? We could get to draft day, and a blockbuster deal could take place. Because as I've told you many a times, deadlines spur action. And if the Patriots aren't sold on one of these guys, and the Vikings are sold on all 3 of them, and the Patriots are like, nah, we only like one of them, and the guy we really want, we can't get. Let's say, and I've made this, you know, clear that I don't think they're going to trade up with us. But they could sit there at 3, see what Washington does at 2. We take the guy that they want, and they can say, you know what, we want out. And then they call the Vikings up. But we'll see what happens. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun. And if we take Daniels, I think he's going to be an excellent pick. Cliff Kingsbury has a history of, you know, coaching up guys with mobility, and I think it'll be a fantastic pick. If they don't go with him and they go with Drake May, I think that's going to be a fantastic pick, and it gives you the guy with the higher upside, I believe. But Daniels, and I've said this already, if you take Daniels, you got a chance to win 8, 9 games this year, potentially. You take Drake May, that number is probably down around where I have it right now at 5 to 7. Maybe it gets to 6 to 8. But I'm not, that doesn't deter me. That doesn't change the way I see it because of what we could get in year 1. I've seen a quarterback come in here year 1 and change everything and then fizzle out. So year 1 doesn't define anything for me. Like CJ Stroud, all right, that was dope, man. I mean, yo, you can't get much better than what you just did. Do it again. Let me see it again. See what you got for an encore. Really appreciate you, Corey, man. Once again, great meeting you and chopping it up. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. King of the Bluegrass writes, I think we should take cornerback or wide receiver at 36. I really like Blake Fisher, tackle from Notre Dame. Can we get him at 67 or maybe 40? Lucas can hold down left tackle. Blake Fisher is a guy that I think should be there at 67. Theoretically, he should be there. But again, I've always told you that quarterback and tackle are the 2 positions that if there's significant talent there, which there is at both of those, they get pushed up. Those are positions that are while supplies last positions. And so teams always want to reach in and grab theirs. And all it takes is one team. Because I said this on the mock draft. I believe I said this. I should have said this if I didn't. I'm saying it now. As a Notre Dame fan, I can tell you, most Notre Dame fans felt like Blake Fisher was more talented than Joe Alt. He was, again, Blake Fisher is a sophomore. right? A redshirt sophomore. He could have gone back to school and he might have been a first-round pick next year, right? Cleaned up some of the inconsistencies and who knows what he could have been. But he said, no, I'm done. I'm ready to go now, right? So he's young. He's talented. Got to work out some of the kinks. But a lot of people feel like from a raw standpoint, raw ability, he's more talented than, Joe Alt. And I would tell you, you're not wrong. But he's not the technician that Joe Alt. Joe Alt is the same dude, snap, the snap, the snap, the snap. You know what you're getting. That's not the case with Blake Fisher, right? There's ebbs and flows, there's ups and downs, but all it takes is one team to say, to hell with all of that. I'm going to take him in the second round. All it takes is one team. And once you get past those first 7 tackles or so, you could easily talk yourself into Blake Fisher. I could see somebody saying, nah, I don't want Patrick Paul. Give me Blake Fisher instead. I don't want Sua Mata'ia. Give me Blake Fisher instead, right? I don't want Kingsley Sua Mata'ia. Give me Blake Fisher instead. You can talk yourself into that. I'll tell you right now, give me Blake Fisher over the kid from Arizona, right? Give me him quick. I'll take him over him any day. Especially when you factor in that the Arizona kid had ACL tear in 2022. But again, corner or wide receiver at 36. Interesting. And if the right one is there, I see it happen. I can see it happening. Keep in mind, you got 40 if you want to take tackle. You really want to know what's crazy? Is because you got so many third-round picks, you really don't have to take a tackle at 36 or 40 if you don't want to. Because worst-case scenario, you see a guy falling and you're like, yo, I don't know how much longer we can wait. We need to you can package up 2/3 and go back into the second. That's the flexibility that you have. You could package up 2/3 and go get your guy. So you don't necessarily have to take a tackle at 36 or 40. You can go 2 totally different positions. I really think they like Jatavion Sanders. So you ask yourself, do I want the 7th best tackle, 8th best tackle in the draft, or do I want the 2nd best tight end in the draft? Your call. These are the kind of decisions and the kind of things that go on in a war room. Do we want to wait? What's the difference between the 8th best tackle, Jordan Morgan, in the draft, and what we have as our 13th best tackle in the draft? And I'm not saying that Jordan, Morgan is the 8th best tackle for Washington on their board. He could be the 11th. But what I'm saying is there that big of a gap? Or can you just wait till your 3rd round pick at 67? Who's to say? All right. Kino, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, we get it. You love Tar Heel QBs. Nah, that ain't it at all. That ain't it at all. I've personally learned, and this is something I'm a human. I still struggle with this at times, but I've learned to scout the player, not the helmet. I could care less where you go to school at. As long as it's D1, I sometimes I struggle with the guys that, like Carson Wentz when he came out of North Dakota State. Like, it's still North Dakota State. Trey Lance, same thing. He went undefeated in his only season in college ball, really. COVID really killed his, 2nd season, but it's still North Dakota State. I get it, but if you can play, you can play, right? But that's sometimes when I can kind of get in my own head, like, was the competition stiff enough? And after seeing Trey Lance not work out in San Francisco, and then seeing the mental meltdown that Carson Wentz had, there's a different level of mental toughness that I think is necessary for the position that you may not get playing at a D2 school. And is that fair? No, that's not fair. But I'm just telling you how I feel, which is why we're human. You know, that human element does enter into the discussion. And so I don't have a Tar Heel bias. Drake Maye played at Boston College, I would have still felt the same way about him. He's got talent, you know, and it's high-level talent. So it is what it is. There is something to be said about the SEC, though. Playing in the SEC matters. I will say that. But you just see a higher level of competition week in, week out in the SEC than you do in any other conference in ball. But, you know, the Big Ten was pretty strong this year. They had some good teams in there. And the ACC was decent, especially with Florida State being as good as it was this year, right? Clemson had a down year, but they're still Clemson. They're still talented, you know? So anyway, I digress. I don't have a bias, and you believe what you want to believe, man. If you want to believe that, go right ahead. Gene Elman, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. Y'all know what to do. Show Gene some love. Welcome Gene with open arms. Show Gene what it's like to be a member of the MOBB. Welcome to the squad. Gene Ailman, welcome aboard. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, I get the feeling that you don't think we can win a Super Bowl with Jaden Daniels. False. Never said that. Again, people, this is what kills me with some people. Y'all, some people hear what they want to hear, right? I never said you couldn't win with Jaden Daniels and couldn't win at a high level. All I ever said, and this is all I'm going to continue to say, is I think Drake Maye's ceiling is higher. That doesn't speak to Jaden Daniels not being able to win at a high level here in the NFL. All it speaks to is that I think Drake Maye's ceiling, which is exactly what I said. You don't have to guess, all right? Because I'm telling you how I feel, right? I think Drake Maye's ceiling is higher. Doesn't mean you can't win and win big with either one of them, because I think you can win big with all three of the quarterbacks in this draft class. So please don't put words in my mouth. I'm not saying you can't win a Super Bowl with any of these guys. I think they're all capable of playing high level NFL football if put in the right situation. And I think Washington is going to be the right situation for all three of these quarterbacks, which is why I feel good about all three of these quarterbacks, which is what I've said all along. I just think, and which is why I would take him, Drake Maye has the highest ceiling of all three of these quarterbacks. Lang Hughes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Lang Hughes writes, stature, arm difference in person will have them leaning Drake Maye. Yeah, you know, when you see him, and they've seen all of these quarterbacks in person already, but as Adam Peters said, when you see him at the combine, they got on sweats, you know what I'm saying, loose fitting clothes. You really don't get to assess what their frame truly looks like. You don't get to see them throw it, right? None of them threw it and participated at the combine. So this was their first opportunity going to all of these pro days to see them throw in person. And I think and you know, the beauty was these pro days were kind of close together, especially the two that they'll be picking from essentially in Drake Maye and Jay. They got to see one guy one day and then the very next day see the other guy, and you can put the two together. I think that's a very helpful piece of information, is being able to go back to back like that. Say, okay, I processed this pro day, and then the very next day I can compare and contrast the two immediately because it's fresh in my mind. And to have them happen Thursday, Friday, and then send you into the weekend where you can kind of sit down and kind of compare notes and, the conversations that they had with the assistants at LSU and the assistants at UNC and got all this information, and you put together the field workout and all that stuff, and it kind of helps with the process, right? So I do think all of that was very beneficial, and maybe seeing them in person might have them leaning towards Drake Maye. Maybe, who knows? Maybe not. Maybe they weren't as impressed as everyone may, try to lead on, right? And it may indicate that they were impressed, but to me, it was the most impressive of the. I think Caleb Williams was the most impressive pro day, but I think Drake Maye's was the second most impressive to this point. Keno, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Keno writes, does JD doing it in the SEC separate him? I don't know if it separates him, but I know it's definitely a feather in his cap. It's something that nobody else can say, outside of Spencer Rattler, right? Like, none of these other dudes did it in the toughest conference in college football. Now, JJ McCarthy says, well, don't sleep on my damn conference. The Big Ten is legit, as legit as it gets. They'll probably argue with Ohio State and Penn State and Iowa and some of the teams that you'll find in their conference. They're just as good as anybody in the country. They'll argue that all day long, all day strong. And to go 27-1, I think he went in his collegiate career, speaks volumes, right? So, yes, playing in the SEC matters. Anybody that says it doesn't, that's their prerogative. But I bet you if you talk to 10 front office personnel representatives from 10 different teams, I bet you, and again, I can't confirm nor deny this, I bet you at least 8 of them, I think more like 9, maybe all 10, no less than 8 would tell you, you're damn right it matters that he played in the SEC. You're damn right that matters. Not that that's going to be the thing that puts him over the top, but if all things are equal and we're using this as a differentiator, yeah, that's going to put him over the top. But all things are not equal, clearly. We're not talking about the same 2 quarterbacks and then one just doing it in the SEC versus the ACC. Different frame, arm strength, athleticism, all of that stuff has to be taken into consideration. Wild throws, the talent around one versus the other and what he was able to do. There's a lot of things that you could take into consideration. So all things aren't equal, but yes, the SEC thing is a thing, and it's always been a thing for me, and it's going to continue to be. Nigel Lavelle, thank you for becoming a member of the MOBB. Stand up. You're in the building. Mob, y'all know what to do. So show Nigel some love. Show him what it's like to be a member of the MOBB. Nigel, welcome to the squad. So glad to have you on board. Keno, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Keno writes, size and arm doesn't equal success. It's the mental. It doesn't equate to success. A lot of guys with size and arm talent come into this league. I talk about that at all the positions. As pass rusher, being explosive and dynamic doesn't always equal to being a dominant pass rusher. I could show you a bunch of guys that don't have the athletic profile of a Dallas Turner. I can talk about a lot of the guys that have come out in recent years. Tack McKinley was explosive off the edge. What did he ever do in the NFL, right? And then we could go down the list. There's so many of these dudes that came into the league with all this fanfare, all this explosiveness, dynamic first step, explosive this, physical that, and then not have it translate to the NFL, right? So arm talent and size doesn't equal success. You're not wrong. but it's not all mental either. Having those things, and again, we're not talking about just the physical attributes. What we're talking about is what those physical attributes allow you to project. And that's why I keep talking about high upside, because size and arm talent does project to higher upside. Now, what we've proven over time is that doesn't necessarily equate to success, but it gives you the best chance for success, is what I've been trying to convey to you, right? So I'm not telling you that size and arm talent equals success, because if that were the measure, if that's all you needed, then you wouldn't draft a Baker Mayfield #1 overall ahead of a Josh Allen. You just wouldn't, right? Because you go for the guy with size and arm talent. You wouldn't draft Joe Burrow over Justin Herbert because you just go to size and arm talent. That's not the only factors, but those factors do go into projecting what a guy could be at the next level. And yes, the mentals are very important. Very, very important. Lang Hughes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Lang Hughes. Right. You think we'll have no idea on draft day morning? There's a realistic chance that we won't have any clue. Yes, I do think we could still be in the dark. This is not the Rivera era. All right. This is not those guys filming Rivera driving into the facility on draft night, salivating and foaming at the mouth at the possibility of passing up on other talent because if Emmanuel Forbes is there, we got to take him, despite what could be falling in your damn lap. This isn't that, okay? These guys aren't dum-dums. They're not going to fixate on one guy, right? And again, the equivalent would be the Bears ended up taking Jaden Daniels 1 or Drake May 1, and they were so hell-bent on taking Jaden Daniels, and the Bears took Drake May, right? Or they were so fixated on taking Drake May that the Bears, took Jaden Daniels 1, and we said, oh, man, Drake May's here. We got to take him, right? And Caleb Williams is sitting there, right? Like, that's what Ron and company did, essentially. It's not apples to apples, but you don't have to worry about that with this group, you know. As Adam Peters literally said out of his own mouth, we have to be prepared for every single situation. Are the Bears taking Caleb Williams #1? We don't know that. We can't go off of that assumption. We have to be ready for everything, right? So I think this is what I keep harking back to. There have been 2 or 3 signings that have happened this offseason that nobody, not us as fans, we don't find out until somebody tells us. But somebody always tells us before the team does. Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Mike Garafolo. None of these insiders, nobody, told us about at least 3 of these signings before they happened. The team told us. The one that still boggles the mind is the Michael Davis one, because literally Michael Davis is on live talking to us as fans, answering questions from the media, and Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Mike Garafolo, none of these dudes get wind of Michael Davis signing here until he's actually live on YouTube talking to us. And that's when everybody said, oh, Washington signed Michael Davis. If they can keep information from getting out like that, this is a group that they ain't telling us Nathan. They playing this straight poker face. You damn right we get the draft morning and we don't know. There is a realistic possibility. Now, sure, we could get to about 3 days out, and then Schefter has, an inkling like, hey, all sources and all signs point to this guy right here, right? Yeah, that's very plausible that we get to that point, and somebody can't hold their water, and Schefter starts getting information, and he's like, yo, I got a hunch. Schefter was on Pat McAfee's show last week, and he said, I don't know. He mocked us, Jaden Daniels, but he said, that's not even an educated guess. I have no idea what they're going to do. Ain't nobody talking, man. Now, they may still not know what they're doing, but I just said all of that to say this. I think it's very likely that we have no idea. The suspense is going to be crazy if we don't. But we could get to, Tuesday, and Adam Schefter has a report that Commanders are strongly, or Bleacher Report has a report, because they got it from Ian Rappaport, that Washington's strongly leaning towards, Jaden Daniels or Drake Maye at 2. That's very, feasible, but I think right now, I think we're the key to how the draft kind of shapes, because New England clearly can only do what we allow them to do at quarterback. If they want Jaden Daniels and we take him, and they don't love Drake Maye or vice versa, would that prompt them to then do something crazy like trade out of the top 3? Or will they just take what's left? We kind of hold the cards in that particular situation, if that makes sense. I feel like we're the key in all of this, because we know what the Bears are doing at 1. So everybody should already be conducting business as if the Bears are taking Caleb Williams. So now Washington, to me, kind of dictates what New England does. New England could be like, bro, we'll take whatever. We're not tripping. You take Jaden, we taking Drake. You take Drake, we take Jaden. We straight either way. I've said this already. The beauty of the situation is we don't have to rely on anybody, because we know what the Bears are doing. So we get to take the quarterback that we deem to be the next best in our minds. So I don't think we're going to know. That's my guess. I don't think we're going to know anything, but we'll see. This group has been really good at keeping information inside, in the house, in-house rather. Corey Kidwell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy Corey writes, absolutely correct, Lou. We all got some form of PTSD, LOL. Man, I hope we get this right this time. Yes. Mob up. I do too, man, because you know what will be the ugliest thing that will come from all of this, Corey? Is how fast this fan base will turn on Adam Peters if he doesn't get this quarterback situation right. First of all, it'll start with the half of the fan base, because, again, the Civil War is taking place as we speak with Jaden Daniels and Drake Maye and the people backing either side, right? So whatever he can't win on draft night, Adam Peters, that is. No matter what he does, he's going to be wrong to a portion of this fan base, whether it's 15, 20, 25, 30, etc. %. He's going to be wrong in their mind's eye because he didn't take the right guy. So he's already working from a deficit with those fans who can't discern the difference between being disappointed that they didn't take the guy that you thought they should take and actually being upset and now rooting against the team. There are fans that can't discern the difference between being disappointed, like, man, I thought y'all should have done this, but all right, we took this guy, let's go to war. Let's roll, right? It's some fans that can't, their mind doesn't work that way. Their ego is too big and it gets involved. Now they got to be right. That portion of the fan base that is disappointed on draft night, that's upset, he's already lost some of them with the decision, no matter what he decides. So that's already there, regardless. unless we start winning and they are proven to be wrong, they'll come around if we win, right? Some of them will even be salty if we start winning and be like, he still ain't Jaden Daniels or he still ain't Drake May, but I mean, guys playing well, so whatever. Some people still can't get out of their feelings, but it's gonna take that success to sway those fans that were disappointed on draft night. What is the biggest problem is that if it doesn't work, not only are you going to have those fans that thought you should have taken the other guy who are now pointing and saying, see, this guy doesn't know anything. He's just like the rest of them. But then the people that were staunch supporters at the very beginning are going to now start to lose trust and say, oh, this guy's not a good GM. And it's just one selection, but it's a big one. He could do everything else right and miss on quarterback. Doesn't mean he's not a good GM. He just missed on quarterback. Let's see if he gets it right the next time, right? The rest of the roster is great. We've been competing our asses off, but that might not be good enough for some people. That's the part that scares me. Is there's a lot of trust in Adam Peters to get this right. And if he doesn't, he could lose a lot of the fans, and that's unfortunate. But that's what PTSD does to you. It puts you in a position where you don't want to let your guard down. You're kind of being defensive. And if at the first sight of trouble, you're bailing because you've been here enough times to know. So I worry about this. I hope he gets this right for his sake, right? For his sake. And for the fans, for our sake, we just hope to get it right because we're sick and tired of being sick and tired of having to try to find a quarterback. This is old, man. This is really old. Money Shot 217. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Money Shot writes, "What's up, Lou? What's going on, Money Shot? I really think Quan Martin will be starting free safety and Jeremy Chin at bot safety. Martin is barely average at nickelback. Hopefully we get one in the draft. We'll see. This draft is loaded with nickels. I hope that they get one, but we'll see what they decide to do. Only time will tell. We got a bunch of safeties. Again, it's easy out of sight, out of mind with Defoe, but not this past season, but the year prior, Defoe played his ass off, and he had us encouraged going into 2023. 2022 was a breakout year for him. Unfortunately, he didn't start great, and then the injury derailed any chance of him just having a slow start, but picking back up and getting back to where we thought he could be. A lot of people have forgotten about him already. He can play, man. So who knows how this staff feels about any of the safeties outside of Quan Martin, who we know they like because they told us. And then we know they think the world of Jeremy Reeves as a special teams player. Outside of that, we really don't. And Jeremy Chin, because they signed him when they think he's a good fit, which he is. We don't know what they feel about Percy Butler. We don't know what they feel about Defoe, Derek Forrest. We have no idea. We don't know how they feel about Benjamin St. Juice or any of that. Or for that matter, as you brought up, we don't know how they feel about Quan Martin and Nickel. We just know they feel good about Quan Martin and think he's really talented. We'll see. We'll see. Jeremy Chin is definitely going to be down around it. He'll be that Buffalo nickel type. He'll definitely be down around the box, being aggressive, for sure. Nigel Lavelle, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Nigel writes, Lou, appreciate the content. Appreciate the support, Nigel. Check out the article on Jaden using I guess that's cognitive VR to up his game. Next level-ish. Drake seems more like a mobile Carson Palmer. If he's a mobile Carson Palmer, that's a damn good thing, right? Carson Palmer was excellent. His biggest flaw was he didn't run. He was a traditional pocket passer. when he was standing there with his. Now, Carson had impeccable footwork. Like, he was statuesque in that regard. And it was pristine. The footwork was excellent. That's not Drake Maye from that standpoint. But if he could get to that level of ability to throw from the pocket, shit, we'd be in. I mean, remember, Carson Palmer took the Arizona Cardinals to the NFC Championship game. He's damn good. And he helped revitalize a downtrodden, terrible Cincinnati Bengals franchise. It was really that group there with Kitna, then Palmer, TJ Houshmandzadeh, and Chad Johnson. That's the group that really, and Rudy Johnson, that's the group that really helped revitalize them and Marvin Lewis and got them back to where they were respectable and to the point where they are now, essentially. So if you get that out of him and then you just add in a mobile aspect, Palmer was also a much bigger dude. Palmer was like 6'5", probably like 230, 225. He's a big dude, man. Carson Palmer he's a pretty big guy. That's not quite Drake Maye, but yeah, I'd take a mobile Carson Palmer any day of the week. If you told me that's what we're getting, sign me up. Sign me up with the ability to throw on the run and the move and all of that stuff. Yeah, sign me up, Nigel. I'd love to see it. I gotta watch. There's a couple of things. Somebody sent me Jaden Daniels on the Pivot Pod. I've been meaning to watch that. I haven't gotten to it yet. I think I want to get into that. So it's a lot of stuff that I'll probably be taking in as we get closer and closer to the draft. Maybe I don't need to get into it unless we draft him, but we'll see. You know, I'm all over the place. My head's all over the place. The Real Benjamin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Feel like this is a double up. It might just be your first. And I can't remember. When all else fails, when in doubt, double up, double them up. The Real Benjamin writes, Maye's ceiling / potential is an invisible stat. What have you done for me now? Ceiling is why we drafted Forbes, Davis, and Chase. JD will come in 1-of-1 speed. But that doesn't stop you from drafting ceiling, right? It's just because you failed. And again, this group didn't draft any of the players that you just referred to, by the way. You could argue that Gonzalez's ceiling was higher than that of Emmanuel Forbes. Forbes just had the ability to take it away. But I think Gonzalez's ceiling was higher than that of Emmanuel Forbes. So I wouldn't even subscribe to that. I think Davis's ceiling in that particular draft with all those linebackers was probably higher because of his raw ability. He hadn't been playing a position as long as some of the other guys. And then the physical gifts, the size, the speed, etc. You thought, hey, this guy's just getting his feet wet. If we can get our hands on him, coach him up. So that would make sense. Chase ceiling, again, there was production in college. He was the predator. You thought you knew what you were getting. He was supposed to come in the clear packaging. You were supposed to be signing up for the Defensive Rookie of the Year and then Pro Bowl seasons and then All-Pro eventually. He was supposed to be that guy. He was supposed to be, no doubt. Generational talent was the phrase we threw around. Guilty as charged. I'm not going to sit here and act like I wasn't throwing that around, because I was. You draft for potential. That's what you do in every league. NBA, you're not taking a guy in the lottery because of what he did in college. Oh, man, this guy was a 2-time All-American. You know, this guy was the Big Ten Player of the Year. Zach Edey is 8 feet tall, just put up 40 and, 24, whatever, in the Elite 8 win. That man ain't getting drafted in the NBA more likely than not. And if he does, he'll be a late second-round pick. Probably won't make the roster. It'll be like Taco Fall, be out of the league in 2-3 years. Who gives a shit? You know why? Because the potential isn't there. You'll take the guy in the NBA who barely scratched the surface in college, but he was a hell of a high school prospect, All-American. And you'll make excuses for him. why he didn't play well in college. He was one and done. And you're like, look, man, I know it wasn't great in his one season at Louisville, or it wasn't great in his one season at Iowa State, or it wasn't great at Kentucky for that 1 year, but this dude is talented and we're going to take him. Why? Because he's got a high ceiling. That's what you do. When you're drafting high, you don't swing to hit a double in the gap. You swing to hit it out of the park. So that'll never change. That'll never change. Smack City. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Smack City. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Smack City, welcome to the squad. Glad to have you on board. Money Shot 217. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, ceiling for Daniels is Deshaun Watson before the incident, and for Maye is Andrew Luck without injuries. Thoughts? If that's accurate, just think about what you just asked me. If that's true, and I saw Pat McAfee throwing that around, I don't agree with Andrew Luck as a comp or the ceiling. That's crazy. Andrew Luck was a no-doubter #1 overall pick for like 3 years straight when he was at Stanford. Okay? There was no doubt what Andrew Luck was going to be at the next level. There was no doubt that he was the guy. You had people like and I think this is when people stopped listening to him as much. What was the name of that GM that was with the Bills and then the Panthers and then the Colts? The one that said that Lamar Jackson should work out at running back, should change to running back. I can't remember his name. But he was talking that Robert Griffin III over Andrew Luck shit, which was asinine. Anyway, do you know what Andrew Luck was as a football player, what he was as a prospect? If that's what you think, if anybody thinks that of Drake Maye, then there's not even a conversation to be had right now, right? It's not even a conversation to be had. I don't think he's that. That's a bit extreme for me. I do think, and yes, I get it. Body type wise, Herbert is a different guy. From a technical standpoint, Herbert was a different animal coming out of Oregon. But I still think the comp is Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, more Herbert than Allen, if you ask me, because Allen's a freak, right? Allen's 6'5", 230, physical, runs, ridiculous arm strength, all that good stuff. I think he's more Herbert than he is Allen, but he's in that. You're hoping he's in that same vein, right? As far as Deshaun Watson, I think that's comparable. Yeah, I like that one. I think I've talked about that already too at some point, that I could see him being Deshaun Watson, prior to all of the stuff that's going on with him. Sure, I could see a little bit of that. I think their arms are very similar. I think Watson's probably got a little bit of a stronger arm, but I think that's similar. The run style is similar. I think Watson is obviously a much more sturdier quarterback, 6'2", as opposed to 6'4", 215 was Watson coming out of Clemson. So again, more compact, more sturdy than the 6'4", 210-pound frame. But I think their play styles are very similar, and I could see that. I don't see the Andrew Luck with Drake Maye though. Don't see that. Daniel Wilson. Stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Mob, you know what to do. Show Daniel some love. Welcome him with open arms. Daniel Wilson, welcome to the squad. Glad to have you on board. That stand up came out a lot like Alicia Keys' first note at the Super Bowl, so I had to take a little sip of water there, get my life together. What did I say I was going to say for this name? Reshi. What did I say? I can't even remember what I said I was going. Can you please just tell me how to say your name so I don't keep messing it up and going back and forth as to what to call you? Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Resai. See, yeah, just tell me how to say your name, please. Who writes, our fan base just wants a black mobile quarterback. Honestly, there are some people in the fan base. There are some fans that literally subscribe to that nonsense where they feel like our quarterback has to be black. And, they're still, again, it goes back to Doug Williams. And then, and how people felt like he was unjustly and unfairly treated when he won the Super Bowl here in Washington. But I think if you want to talk about how deep rooted it is, it goes back to Doug. But I think a lot of people just look at, there's Jason Campbell, then there was Robert Griffin III, and then it was Dwayne Haskins, and they just want a black quarterback to be successful here, right? I told you already, I don't give a damn what color he is. Just win, baby. I'm on some Al Davis shit. Just win, baby. That's all I want. Give me a dude that's gonna come in here and change the fortunes of this franchise. I don't give a damn what color he is, man. As long as he's a good dude, right, that you can get behind, and he's talented, and he leads this team where they ultimately want to go. That's all I care about. But yes, there are some in the fan base that are like that, which is just crazy to me. Crazy to me. And some people out there, they talk about Chocolate City, and that's part of the thought process behind that, right? We want a black quarterback representing Chocolate City. That shit went out the window for me. When we start talking about winning, give me the dude who's gonna help us do that, right? To hell with all that other stuff. Nigel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Nigel Lavelle writes, Lou, how much time is needed for Drake to hit his ceiling? Because it seems like he needs game reps to progress. 2 years? Who's to say? We can't say, right? I couldn't tell you because there's no, like, Ron Rivera's Ronald is so ridiculous, right? Remember, he had this stupid ass 1,500 reps bullshit. He said, whatever the number was, it was some ridiculous number. I don't know where the hell he got it from. There could have been some, statistics on it or something, but that shit was dumb as hell. It takes 5,800 reps to become really, like, what? Get the hell out of my face with that bullshit, man. I don't know. Yes, game reps are where it's at. We can sit here and talk about sitting and watching and learning, but at some point you have to be able to apply all of the things that you've learned. And on a practical level, the only way for us to really truly know what you've retained and what we can expect from you is by actually seeing you do it on the field when it matters. So yes, game reps are massively important, and I would think that with a young quarterback, you would give them at least 2 years to try and figure it out. And by year 3, you need to see something or else you have to move on. We've gotten so spoiled in our society in the way of thinking with instant gratification that guys don't even get 3 years anymore as, rookie contract quarterbacks coming in. You get 2 years, and essentially halfway through that second year, if we don't see what we're looking for, we got to move on, right? And that's crazy to me. But to me, it should be a bare minimum of 3 years before you figure out what it is we got here, right? And I would think 2 years would be a fair assessment of, okay, we should be able to tell after 2 years if everything's intact, right? You haven't switched coordinators. He doesn't have a new head coach, which he's not going to have a new head coach here, but he could have a different coordinator. I don't think he will. I think he'll have the same coordinator for the first 2 years of his career. And if everything's the same and you know the offensive line is in a sieve and you've given him talent and you've given him consistency with play calling and things of that nature, then we should be able to tell what we have in 2 years, right? By then, you would probably have said, all right, he can or he can't, he will or he won't. But who's to say? You know, the light bulb could come on in year 3. It did for Josh Allen, right? There were still Bills fans after year 2 when he took him to the playoffs and he was doing some crazy shit in that Texans game. There were still Bills fans that were like, I don't know about this dude. This he's too volatile. I don't think we can do it with this guy. And it was year 3 where they realized, oh shit, we got something here. So you don't know, right? You just don't know. King of the Bluegrass. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, just a feeling, not a fact of the matter. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, King of the Bluegrass, writes, I agree on Dallas Turner. Reminds me of the edge from Georgia that went number 1. Explosive, amazing talent, but hasn't unlocked potential. You're talking about Trayvon Walker. I see a lot in Dallas Turner, but again, it's the ability to put it all together, to continue to grow and develop as a pass rusher. Don't just rest on the fact that you're explosive and dynamic and you have this ridiculous, first step and explosion off the edge, and the ability. And he also has the ability to dip and bend, which are all great qualities and traits to have. But you gotta be able to put it together. If he can do that, look out. But I've seen a lot of guys coming into the league with his skill set and not figure it out. So that's one of those dudes. Abel Ambrosio, AA, been a member for 17 months. Appreciate you. Who writes, what up, Lou? What's your favorite Sean T memorable play? Man, there were so many of them that he produced here in Washington. One, even the first game he played in, the Hall of Fame game, where he has the pick 6 and, you could see it then, right? I always remember the Bears game in his rookie season. He has the big pick at the end. Everybody, I include myself, screaming, get down, get down. He's trying to run it back for a touchdown. He has a big sack in that game. He gets up and he does like a little sprinkler dance. But, one of the highlight plays was him jumping up at the apex with Randy Moss and one-on-one down the field, 50 yards with Randy Moss. You don't do that with a safety. And that was prime Randy Moss. You don't leave Randy Moss one-on-one with a safety 50 yards down the field. Are you crazy? And he went up, and he took the football from Randy Moss. He mossed on Moss. And that was the game where the Vikings needed to win to get to the playoffs, and Randy Moss left the field early because we did those boys, and we weren't good that year, but Sean was a beast. And it's just plays like that, that Green Bay game. Like, I could do this all day. He should have had 15 picks in that game against Brett Favre. It was wet. He dropped like 4 of them, and he still caught like 2 of them. And he should have had like 6 of them. And I'm not bullshitting you. He dropped like 3 picks in that game and still had 2 of them. It was ridiculous. We should have won that game. I think we lost like 17-14. Santana had a big fumble. Whatever. He was such a hell of a player, man. And in all of this in just a short, 3.5 year span. Eric Hill II. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Eric writes, Jaden played half a decade. Elite wide receivers helped. When you put it that way, Jesus. Okay, yes, he played half a decade, but did you have to say it like that? Yes, he played half a decade. Yikes, that sounds bad, doesn't it? Having great supporting cast helps, but that's what you want. Like, I only use that as a knock on a player when I don't love his ability. Like Mac Jones, I use that as a way to say, who is Mac Jones? Other than a dude that played on an elite offense and he was just the caretaker of an elite offense. I remember saying he doesn't have any superpowers. What first round quarterback has no superpowers? Like Mac Jones has zero superpowers. And then you could say, well, he's accurate. Okay, sure, fine. If you want to say he's accurate, but it's not hard to be accurate when you were playing with some of the best talent college football has to offer and guys are creating 5 yards of separation. It's not hard to be super accurate, but whatever. I wasn't going to try to demean him any more than I already had. But that's when I use that argument of this guy's got a ton, like you want to surround your quarterback with talent. So I try not to hold that against guys unless you don't have any talent of your own and you're reliant upon that talent. I don't think that's necessarily, the case for Jaden Daniels. Yes, his guys are very talented and they definitely helped. He threw the 2 first-round wide receivers. Yeah, that helps, man, a lot. But in the same vein, his abilities also helped with those guys getting some of the looks that they got and some of the things that they were able to do was because they had to key in on Jaden Daniels and his ability to hurt you with his legs and things of that nature. You had the game plan to stop Jaden Daniels, and that created some of the looks that he got and was able to take advantage with his receivers. So it goes both ways. Those receivers definitely helped, but he helped them too. Right? It wasn't a one-way street. Zolife. No life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Zolife, no life writes, hey, Lou, I'm heterosexual, but I imagine having JJ and Cliff on the sideline. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. What? Wait, what? What? Anyways, did Maye release get quicker? I don't know if it got quicker because it could be elongated at times, but I can't say that they got quicker. You cleaned some stuff up at your pro day, and it did look a little bit faster, but that's throwing against air. You're scripting it. You've been repping this all, off season long. Maybe it did. I'd have to see it in live action to know if I felt like it got shortened up a bit. But yeah, the first part of that pause. We let's just get a long pause for the first half of that comment. Like, what were we just doing there? That was interesting to say the least. But are you insinuating that those are some nice looking guys? Okay, I mean, again, cool. Hey, look, at the end of the day, I don't know if his release got quicker or not. Maybe it did. Maybe it did. You know what? I would guess if we timed it, I bet you it did. I bet you it did. But those are the types of things you look to clean up for your pro day. Footwork. If we feel like your release is a little long, you clean that up, right? You shorten that. Yeah, probably. I'd say it probably got a little faster. Barry Gray Beats. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Barry Gray Beats writes, who was faster, Demps or Hill? Random question. Trying to think of what Hill you would be referring to. You know, we still got to be mindful of those out there that try to take advantage of the kid. So, you know, I'm always on high alert. But I don't know what Hill you were referring to. I'm assuming you're talking about the Demps from Florida. I just don't know what Hill we're talking about. Maybe Justice Hill? If we're talking about the two of them, I'd say Justice Hill was probably faster, but man, Florida had some fast ass dudes, man, and Demps was one of them. One of them dudes too was like a track dude. It might have been Demps. I can't remember. It might have been him. I don't know, man. That's close. It's real close. You talking about Tyreek Hill? I'm not putting anybody ahead of Tyreek. I've never seen a human, maybe Bo Jackson. I've never seen a human run that fast on a football field. Remember the day and age that we're in. Like, Bo was fast in an era where dudes weren't super fast. Jerry Rice looked like he was running a 4.3 when he caught a slant back in those days, because the dudes he was running away from weren't very fast. And Bo Jackson made those dudes look slow because Bo was that fast. That's what Tyreek Hill looks like, but he's running away from dudes who run 4.3, whatever, 4.4, whatever, and he's making those dudes look slow. Bo was making dudes that ran 4.6 and 4.7 look slow because they were slow. Tyreek's, yeah, it's Tyreek Hill. I don't know. It's Tyreek Hill. I've never seen anybody run faster on a football field. The only other person that I could think of that would be that fast would be Bo Jackson, maybe Deion. There was a time where, you know, Deion, you get Deion in the open field and it was like, forget about it, bro. And Deion would be just striding it, though. You know, Tyreek, his shit looked like it's like a little smaller. Deion would be striding, but he would be gone, bro. But it's Tyreek. Yeah, okay, Tyreek. Yeah, it's Tyreek. Sorry about that. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. It's Tyreek. He's the fastest guy I've seen. So, anyway. Y'all are crazy, man. I can't with y'all. Gignac the Big Mac. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Gignac the Big Mac writes, Maye's age is a factor why I prefer Bro over JD despite issues like his accuracy that is iffy, to be honest. PSA to people wanting JJ at 2, stop it. Get some help. Again, I think that's something that you have to take into consideration, how young he is. And that's part of the upside conversation. Like, you have to be willing to invest the time and energy that it's going to take to get him where he ultimately needs to be. But he's so young. There's so much promise there. And to pass on him because he's not where you think he should be now at 21 is ridiculous. If you think he's the more talented of the two, that's the guy you should go with. That's my opinion. But it doesn't matter what I think. It's what they think. And if they've done the work, and this is what I always say about these types of decisions, we only have the visual, data and information. We don't have the behind the scenes information. Kind of a leader he is, kind of a worker he is, etc. How do his teammates feel about him? We don't have that information. I don't think that information is negative on any of these guys, but still, that's information that we're not privy to. So, I can just say that's a huge part of my thought process is his age. I brought that up earlier on tonight's show. The conversation of upside versus instant gratification. There's a lot of fans that want to win now. They do not want to wait 2, maybe even 3 years, even though the payoff might be greater. There are no guarantees. And so they want now, and they'll worry about the rest later. So anyway, GT7, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. GT7 writes, Wentz might get another Super Bowl ring from the sideline. Is he still in LA with the Rams? I don't know if he's still in LA with the Rams or not, but he ain't getting no more rings. Wherever he is, he ain't winning shit. Unless he went to like the 49ers or the Chiefs or something like that. He ain't getting no more rings. Rams ain't winning nothing else if that's where he's at. Barry Gray Beats, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Barry Gray Beats writes, I asked because Jeff Demp's highlights are crazy. Demps was stupid fast. And, I think he was a track guy, like Olympic fast, right? Like, I think he was next level fast. And that was the era at Florida where it was Percy, it was Demps. They had a whole bunch of dudes that were ridiculous in that backfield. And it was like one after another after another. That's why they were so good. They had so many high-level athletes. But yeah, he was fast, but it's hard to bet against Tyreek Hill. I don't know what Tyreek's 40 is. You could go back and look at the combine that he was at, and it may not be as impressive as some of these do. I'm just telling you, I don't care what anybody. We saw Chris Johnson's 40, and Chris Johnson was fast as shit. And he was another one that looked like he was running at a different speed on the end. Like, it's certain dudes that look like they running at a different speed than everybody else. Chris Johnson, which is why he held the record at the combine for so long. He looked like he was running that 4.22 or whatever, 4.25, I believe it was. That was legit. That's another dude to throw into that conversation too. Chris Johnson, along with Tyreek Hill. I don't know what Tyreek ran. Clearly, it wasn't faster than Chris Johnson's 40. I don't give a shit what it is. When people are chasing Tyreek Hill, nobody catches him. Okay. And maybe it's the ability to start and stop, and that explosiveness and that acceleration is just next level, otherworldly. But Chris Johnson is another one too to add onto that list. But with Demps, what was crazy, he just never worked at the NFL. I remember him being with the Bucks, and that shit just didn't work. And I can't tell you why. It just didn't. Maybe he was immature. He just wasn't ready for the opportunity. I can't tell you why his speed didn't translate. Duncan Wright, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Duncan, welcome to the squad, my guy Duncan Wright. Always a pleasure to have you on board. Brandon Thomas, stand up. You are now the newest member of the MOBB. So glad to have you on board. Mob, y'all know what to do. Show Brandon some love. Welcome him with open arms. Welcome to the squad. Brandon Thomas, welcome aboard. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Duncan writes, the Commanders are trash. Our trash team. Just wanted to remind you, Lou. Hugs and kisses. What would be a stream without my guy Duncan chiming in to rain on our parade? Oh, how we love you, Duncan. Thank you and never change. Never, ever, ever change. You are a national treasure when you are not drunk. You are a one of a kind. Thank you. Kino, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kino writes, Wentz signed to, well, there you go. If he signed with the Chiefs, he might get another ring then. I said, unless he signed with the 49ers or the Chiefs, he ain't getting shit. Did he say he signed to the Chiefs? Well, then, that changes it. I thought they had already signed a backup quarterback already, though. I thought they already had somebody. Huh. Did they have like a Blaine Gabbert or somebody like that already on the roster? Interesting. They don't really want to do that, do they? They don't really want Carson Wentz as the backup quarterback in Kansas City. Like, if something happens to Mahomes, Wentz has to come in. That can't be right. That can't be life. That's interesting. I don't have any ill will towards Carson Wentz. Some of you may, I don't. So just make sure I throw that out there. But that's interesting if he signed with Kansas City. He may not make that team. There's got to be. I'm interested now. I'm actually curious real quick. Chiefs depth chart. Let's just see what they got going on here. No, they don't have anybody listed here at backup quarterback currently. So maybe they didn't have a backup. I just felt like they did. Oh yeah, it was bad. They got Ian Book. Yeah, this is some nasty work here. Okay, yeah. So no, they didn't have a backup, so they do now. And that's not a good thing, but okay. Cool beans. Barry Gray Beats. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Barry Gray Beats writes, does Maye have a frame like Josh Allen? That's why I like him less likely to get hurt. I like him less likely to get hurt. Nah, it's not that kind of frame. That's why I said, he doesn't have a Herbert or Allen frame. Herbert 6'6", 230, 235. Allen 6'5", 235. That ain't Drake Maye. Drake Maye 6'4", 220, 225 at his heaviest. But I think he played at 223. They had him listed at like 223. He's probably more like 220, somewhere in there. 220, 225, somewhere in there. That's cool. That's good weight. It ain't 230, 235, right? It don't look like that. And not to say that he can't get there, but generally, what you don't see quarterbacks doing throughout their career is getting like significantly bigger. This isn't the NBA. You don't bulk up over time. Lamar Jackson has gotten a little bit bigger. Like, go back and watch Lamar in his rookie season. He's considerably smaller than what he is now. He's put on some weight, but it's not like a ton of weight, right? So, yeah, I don't. Generally, what you come into the league as is what you're going to be for the most part. You may, as you get a little bit older, you might put on a little bit more weight, but generally speaking, you are what you are from a weight standpoint. No, he's not Josh Allen. So anyway, I digress. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, as we kind of close the book on those pro days now. And so the attention will really start to turn to these official 30 visits. Those will be, something to kind of look out for to see, what direction they're maybe leaning towards. Reminder, just a brief reminder, 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, Bleacher Report. Yours truly will be on live talking about the Commanders draft targets, trades that could potentially, come about and things of that nature. I will be sending out that link at tomorrow at probably around like 9:30ish. I will be sending out that link on various social media platforms, on Twitter or X, on YouTube, in the community tab, on IG. So you'll have access to it, but if you're able to, and you're already synced up with Bleacher Report, and you're logged in, just click on your Washington Commanders tab. And generally, if you have the app, and you already liked Washington as one of your favorite teams, it'll pop up on your app as a notification in your notifications that, hey, talking about Washington Commanders potential trade and draft targets, tap in now, and all you gotta do is tap, that notification, and it'll take you straight there. So anyway, I digress. I appreciate you guys kicking it with the kid. Feels good to be back. And I'll be live tomorrow night for the Louie T Network podcast. So hopefully you'll join me for that. Wednesday, I think we'll take that night off, and then we'll be back with a vengeance on Thursday night as we talk about all the happenings of this team. I'll have some other things to discuss with you, including the mock drafts that I put out, kind of going through those and talking to you. And I apologize for the audio on all of those videos that I left up. There was a lot of shit going on with the audio there that I didn't know until after I had recorded, and it got ugly. And I tried my best, because I didn't have the time to go back and re-record them. I tried my best to clean it up in the limited amount of time that I had. It was ugly. So my apologies there. I appreciate y'all still kicking it with the kid, despite the nastiness that some of that audio was. It was bad. Some of it was really bad. So I apologize for that. But anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. I look forward to chopping it up with you hopefully tomorrow night. For the rest of you, I'll see you on Thursday night. But in between then, I'll have some more videos out for mass consumption. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for those. Anyway, hopefully I'll see a lot of you for the 11 a.m. Bleacher Report stream tomorrow. If not, hopefully I'll see you for the podcast on tomorrow night. If not, then I'll see you hopefully on Thursday night when we go live again talking about the Commanders. Until then, you guys take care. Have a good one. God bless. Good night.